Chapter 306. What do you mean? Song Qingshu looked at her in confusion. Are you hoping that I can disguise myself as another woman for your pleasure after I learn the art of disguise? Dongfang Mushu bit her lips and revealed a charming smile. You're thinking too much. Song Qingshu felt his breath catch in his throat, but he was still a little excited when he imagined Dongfang Mushu cosplaying. Is that so? Dongfang Mushu moved her face closer to Song Qingshu and blew on his face. I was thinking that as long as you make me happy, I might reluctantly disguise myself as another woman, like the famous beauties Huang Rong or Xiao Longnu. Don't you think that's exciting? Huang Rong and Xiao Longnu? Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face. These two women were probably the two women with the most appearances in all of Jin Yang's doujinshi, especially the H ones. There were 365 different styles and 365 different positions. Song Qingshu mourned for them in his heart, but his face was solemn as he looked at Dongfang Mushu with disdain. You're too evil. They're the women that all martial artists dream of. Are you really not tempted? Dongfang Mushu looked at Song Qingshu in shock. Why would I look for fake like you instead of their real bodies? Song Qingshu calmly picked up a cup of tea and slowly sipped on it. Yo, I thought you've changed your personality and became a Lu Xiaohui. Dongfang Mushu snatched the porcelain cup from Song Qingshu's hand and drank without hesitation. Those two women are not people that you can have just because you want them. But not only can I disguise myself as them, I can also satisfy any of your requests. I really lost to you. Why don't you disguise yourself for me? Song Qingshu knew that this was just Dongfang Mushu's way of seducing him. How about you let him off so easily? In your dreams, as expected, Dongfang Mushu elegantly turned around. If you really want to do that, you can find a more obedient woman and teach her the art of disguise. Anyway, I won't use it to satisfy your evil desires after I master it. What you said does make some sense. Song Qingshu rubbed his chin and nodded. Who should he look for? Xia Qingqing? Song Qingshu subconsciously rejected the idea. This vinegar jar, it was already her limit to be willing to be his lover. To ask her to disguise herself as another woman and him. Thinking of the most likely outcome, Song Qingshu sucked in a cold breath. Shuang, seemed to be the most obedient one. But although she looked gentle on the outside, she had her own principles and would definitely not agree to such a ridiculous request. Chu Fian was a good choice. Although she was young, she was very open-minded. Coupled with her indifferent moral values, she would probably clap her hands and cheer after hearing a suggestion. Noticing Song Qingshu's constantly changing expression, Dongfang Mushu felt a chill. Your head is full of disgusting thoughts. No matter how you play, I only have one request. What is it? Song Qingshu was puzzled. You can't let another woman disguise herself as me and do that to you. Otherwise, I will kill the two of you. Dongfang Mushu could imagine that sooner or later, Song Qingshu would ask that woman to disguise herself as him and serve him obediently. This was what Dongfang Mushu could not tolerate the most. Following her train of thought, Song Qingshu's eyes lit up. Why didn't he think of such a great idea? But noticing Dongfang Mushu's cold expression, Song Qingshu nodded rationally and agreed. If I want you, I can find you directly. Why do I need to find someone else to disguise as you? Dongfang Mushu blushed, but strangely did not refute. The room quickly fell into a tacit silence. Suddenly, a eunuch's shout came from outside the door. Concubine Ping requests an audience. Dongfang Mushu quickly recovered and smiled. She's quite worried about you being alone with me. Miss Shui, you're gauging the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure. I'm here this time to discuss the serious matters of the Golden Snake Camp with Brother Song. I don't have the time to flirt with you. Xia Qingqing had just entered and happened to hear Dongfang Mushu's words. She could not help but retort. Oh, I would like to hear more about this so-called serious matter. Dongfang Mushu didn't mind Xia Qingqing's attitude. Instead, she sat down on a chair and refused to leave. Xia Qingqing didn't understand why she disliked Lady Shui so much. In truth, in her heart, she only wanted to spend the rest of her life with Song Qingshu. She didn't care if he had other women, but every time she saw Lady Shui, Xia Qingqing couldn't help but feel a sense of enmity. Brother Song, the Golden Snake Camp, is now divided. No one is willing to submit to the other. If you want to subdue the Golden Snake Camp for your own use, I'm afraid it will not be easy. I wonder if Brother Song has any good ideas? Seeing that Dongfang Muxue had no intention of avoiding, Xia Qingqing did not say anything. After all, the three of them were in the same boat. Yu, if I use force to subdue the leaders of the various mountains, do you think they will listen to me? Song Qingshu asked. Xia Qingqing frowned. After thinking for a moment, she shook her head firmly. I'm afraid not. Although Brother Yuan did use his martial arts to gain the respect of the various mountains, more importantly, they went through thick and thin together. Basically, every leader has received Brother Yuan's kindness. That's why everyone elected him as their leader. Yu, I'm afraid you are embarrassed to say that I was once an enemy of the Golden Snake Camp. It would be strange if they accepted me. Song Qingshu smiled. Xia Qingqing smiled awkwardly. When she heard that Song Qingshu wanted to go back to Shandong with her to reorganize the Golden Snake Camp, she suddenly realized the difficulty after the excitement. What's so difficult about it? Just let those leaders owe Song Qingshu a big favor. As the leader of the number one sect in the Central Plains, Dongfang Muxue always hit the nail on the head. Easy for you to say. Xia Qingqing snorted disdainfully. It's not impossible. Song Qingshu smiled. He pointed at Dongfang Muxue and said, Yu, did you forget that we are not fighting alone? Now, even the Manchurian Emperor Daud is our teammate. What do you mean? Xia Qingqing's mind flashed, but she still felt that she could not grasp the key point. If the imperial court sent an army to encircle the Golden Snake Camp, how would the leaders of the mountains react? Song Qingshu revealed an enigmatic smile. Fear. It must be fear and despair. Xia Qingqing finally understood what Song Qingshu meant. The Golden Snake Camp is in a state of disunity. They kill each other and are no longer what they used to be. As long as the Manchurian Imperial Army approaches with the pressure of Mount Tai, they will definitely collectively despair. What if the Golden Snake Consort introduces a so-called savior at this time? Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows proudly. He wanted to point at himself and say that he was the savior. With the Golden Snake Consort's recommendation, those people will more or less accept Song Qingshu. As long as he can lead them to defeat the powerful Imperial Army, Song Qingshu will probably imitate the Hegemon King of Western Shu and become a god in one battle. Dongfang Muxue looked at Song Qingshu with some surprise, but a heartfelt appreciation rose in her heart. In the past, Song Qingshu was just an interesting young man in her heart. Later, he became a useful partner. It was not until the recent shocking events that Dongfang Muxue realized that Song Qingshu had grown into an ambitious person that even she could not see through. Hey, I don't like hearing this. The Hegemon King of Western Shu did not end up well. Song Qingshu let out a long sigh when he thought of how Yuji had chosen to commit suicide in order not to be a burden to Xiangyu, and how Xiangyu had refused to cross the river east. Even if you want to be Xiangyu, I'm afraid you won't be able to find a woman who is willing to be Yuji. Dongfang Muxue glanced at Xia Qingqing with a faint smile. Xia Qingqing smiled indifferently. How could this woman understand the lifeless state she was in after she mistakenly thought that Song Qingshu was dead? She did not want to continue this topic, so she said, let's get down to business. According to Brother Song's plan, the number of troops sent by the Imperial Court is the key. If it's too few, it won't be a deterrent to the Golden Snake Battalion. If it's too many, I'm afraid it will be extremely difficult for Brother Song to lead a motley crew to turn the tables. Xia Qingqing was considerate of Song Qingshu in every aspect. At the end of her words, she could not help but frown. Of course, more, Song Qingshu said resolutely. Even if we can't make it to the extent of cutting off the flow with a flick of the whip, we should at least make it 70 to 80% charming. Song Qingshu knew that his reputation in the martial arts world could only be described as miserable. Previously, he had successfully cleared his name by assassinating Kangxi, But if he wanted to go one step further, he could only establish his image in the hearts of the world through an extremely glorious victory. But that's a little too risky, Xia Qingqing said worriedly, still trying to persuade Song Qingshu to play it safe. This game of chess seems dangerous, but the two sides are on the same side. The Golden Snake Battalion, who is severely lacking in information, can only be used as pawns. If we can lose in this way, then I might as well buy a piece of tofu and kill myself, Song Qingshu said with a smile. Miss Xia, don't worry about him. Since ancient times, I'm afraid there hasn't been a general like him who knows all the information about the enemy before the battle. This little fox will never do something he is not sure of. Dongfang Muxue, who was listening at the side, beamed with joy. She was amazed by Song Qingshu's plan and could not stand Xia Qingqing's nagging. But there's a fatal flaw in this plan, Song Qingshu suddenly said in a deep voice. What is it? Dongfang Muxue and Xia Qingqing asked in unison. That is, this Miss Xue has unknowingly become one of the players. If I'm not careful, I will be consigned to eternal damnation by her. Song Qingshu looked at Dongfang Muxue quietly. That's why you should curry favor with me and pray that I won't do anything bad to you. Dongfang Muxue yawned casually and looked back at him with a provocative look. Song Qingshu suddenly smiled. Miss Xue, do you still need treatment? It's not too long before I leave the capital. Chapter 307. Your journey to the south is fraught with danger. I'd better not waste your energy. Dongfang Muxue shook her head after a moment of silence. I see. Song Qingshu fell into deep thought and also fell silent. One of you is blushing and the other is pale. What kind of riddle are you talking about? Xia Qingqing could not help but ask. It's nothing. As soon as the two of them spoke, they saw each other say the same thing, and they couldn't help but smile at each other. At that moment, Song Qingshu felt that he understood Dongfang Muxue's concerns. She did not want to turn their relationship into a transaction, so she rejected his hint. Song Qingshu also realized that it was too naive to think that he could subdue Dongfang Muxue just by relying on physical intimacy. Now that he was facing that flawless and exquisite face, it was easy to overlook the fact that his master was actually the decisive Dongfang Bubi. If she really had other intentions, a simple membrane would not be enough to protect her. Moreover, with Dongfang Muxue's personality, that membrane might have been destroyed by her own hands a long time ago. All right, whenever Miss Xue needs treatment, just let me know. I'm willing to be at your beck and call. I'll do my best until my death. After understanding everything, Song Qingshu was no longer conflicted. Since Dongfang Muxue was willing to guide his hand to explore the deepest place, she had already made her stance clear. There was no need for him to push his luck. What nonsense are you talking about? Dongfang Muxue naturally knew what Song Qingshu was talking about and rolled her eyes at him. Although Xia Qingqing did not understand the secret language between the two, she quickly sensed the danger and urged Song Qingshu to leave for the south as soon as possible. Although Song Qingshu could not bear to part with the beautiful scenery in the palace, he knew that he would not be able to enjoy it as much as before with Dongfang Muxue and Xia Qingqing by his side. Moreover, he knew that business was more important. In the next few days, the three of them sped up their discussion. After thinking that they had considered all the details of the plan, Song Qingshu and Xia Qingqing embarked on their journey south to Shandong. Brother Song, who is that Lady Xue? Xia Qingqing had always been curious about the mysterious Dongfang Muxue. After leaving Yinjing City for a few days, she could no longer hold back her curiosity and asked. She is an extraordinary woman with great ambitions. Song Qingshu did not know how to introduce Dongfang Muxue. Was he supposed to tell Xia Qingqing that she was the one who killed her husband? So she has such a high status in Brother Song's heart. Xia Qingqing's tone was filled with jealousy. You are different between you and her. To me, she is more like a friend than a foe. To me, she is more like a friend than a friend. To me, she is more like a friend. Song Qingshu was not lying. So many things had happened between the two of them, and their relationship was no longer comparable to that of ordinary women. big brother Song, Xia Qingqing's heart was filled with sweetness. She looked at Song Qingshu with eyes full of adoration, and even her voice became a bit more mellow. Song Qingshu held Xia Qingqing's soft hand and pointed to a restaurant not far away. We have been on the road for a long time. Let's eat and rest at the inn in front. Xia Qingqing nodded sweetly. Sir, what would you like to eat? Our wine and dishes are the most famous within 100 miles. As soon as the two of them entered the restaurant, the waiter greeted them attentively. With many years of experience, he could tell at a glance that the two of them were big customers. The man had an imposing appearance, while the woman was charming. Furthermore, the material of her clothes was exquisite. She must be very generous with her money. Song Qingshu did not disappoint him. After sitting down in a quiet place, he picked the most expensive and exquisite dishes and the best wine in the restaurant. It was not that Song Qingshu was putting on airs, but he was used to living in the palace. Anything he ordered would not be cheap. Not long after the two of them settled down, there was a sudden commotion at the door. A group of people entered in a line. In front were a few well-dressed warriors. Each of them had a bow on their back and a quiver at their waist. As soon as they entered, they stood guard at various vital points. A man in embroidered robes walked in while supporting a beautiful woman. The woman was over 30 years old, but there were no signs of aging. Her figure was graceful, and her appearance was handsome. Although the man in embroidered robes was dressed as a man, his appearance was exceptionally handsome. His eyes were clear, and the skin of the hand supporting the woman was like white jade. Anyone could see that she was a woman dressed as a man. This person's cross-dressing skill needs to be improved. Xia Qingqing used to roam the world. For the sake of convenience, she often disguised as a man. Very few people could see through her disguise. Even the leader of the Five Poison sect, He Tai Shou, was lost under her handsome appearance. Thus, Xia Qingqing naturally looked down on the skills of this man in embroidered robes. She could not help but smile. She didn't deliberately hide the fact that she was a woman. Song Qingshu sighed, but in his heart, he was extremely surprised. Why was she here? Annie, niece's heart aches when I see your depressed appearance all day long. This time, on this trip to Jiangnan, I begged the Great Khan to let Annie come out to relax. Annie won't blame me, right? The man in embroidered robes helped the beautiful woman to sit down at an elegant table by the window. A faint dimple appeared at the corner of his mouth. Who on the grasslands doesn't know that Min Min is clever? Annie doesn't believe that you really don't know about me. The beautiful woman snorted and looked at the green branches outside the window. She lightly sighed. Jiangnan is the place of Auntie's sorrow. I originally planned to spend the rest of my life alone in the desert and never set foot in the Central Plains. I didn't think that after just a dozen years, Auntie would break the vow of that day. Auntie, there are so many good men on the grasslands. Why do you need to wallow in a past relationship? I have heard of what happened in the past. The Great Khan's kindness to him is as heavy as a mountain. He even betrothed Auntie to him. Who knew that as soon as he entered the Central Plains, he would fall in love with someone else? He even hid the engagement and ran to Peach Blossom Island to seek marriage. He really is a heartless and fickle person. It's a shame that the Song people still think of him as a great hero. Humph! The man in embroidered robes felt sorry for this poor Auntie. The more he spoke, the angrier he became. The beautiful woman gently shook her head and stopped the man in embroidered robes from continuing. He was originally a Song person. For the Song court, it's understandable that he went against the Great Khan. What's more, Annie was confused and indirectly caused the death of his mother. Speaking of it, it's me who has wronged him more. This matter had happened almost 20 years ago, but her heart still ached when she mentioned it. Seeing the distress between Auntie's brows, the man in embroidered robes angrily said, "It's true that he is a Song person, but the Mongols took him and his mother in when they had nowhere else to go. They painstakingly raised him for more than a dozen years. As the saying goes, the kindness of giving birth is not as great as the kindness of raising. But he helped the Song people to deal with the Mongols. He really is cruel and unscrupulous." The man in embroidered robes would not have lost his composure like this. But his auntie's relationship with Auntie had evoked a grudge in her heart, and she could not help but be agitated. I don't understand a national righteousness, but since he made this choice, he must have his own reasons. The beautiful woman's expression darkened. What happened afterwards was only because we each had our own masters. Min, you should have experienced this deeply. The man in embroidered robes smiled bitterly. We both fell in love with a Han person. Unfortunately, they're like fire and water with our Mongol Empire. The beautiful woman gently patted the back of her hand to comfort her, and her expression could not help but reveal a sorrowful expression. With Song Qingshu's current strength, even though the two women spoke in low voices, he could still hear them clearly. He could not help but understand that the man in embroidered robes was naturally Zhao Min, and the slightly older woman should be the Princess Huazheng, who was engaged to Guijing. When he had just transmigrated to this world and met Zhao Min once at Mount Shaoshi, Song Qingshu looked at the proud woman who used to be as bright as a rose, but now had a trace of haggardness between her eyebrows. Song Qingshu could not help but recall the events of the past, and his eyes could not help but become somewhat dazed. "Brother Song, what's wrong?" Xia Qingqing looked at him strangely. "Could it be that you know them?" "I've met them once, but I can't say that I know them." Song Qingshu shook his head and thought of a time when he had planned to conquer Zhao Min to take revenge on Zhang Wuji, and could not help but laugh involuntarily. "I wonder what they are planning to do when they come south to the Central Plains this time." Song Qingshu fell in a deep thought. "State Advisor, you have fought with Guijing many times. In your opinion, is Guijing a true gentleman or a hypocrite?" Zhao Min suddenly turned around and asked a foreign monk in a yellow robe beside her. Hearing Zhao Min's respectful tone, Song Qingshu could not help but look over curiously. He saw that the foreign monk's body was as tall as a bamboo pole, but also extremely thin. His forehead was slightly sunken, making him look like a plate, and his elbow was holding a wheel-shaped weapon. Song Qingshu was shocked. Could it be Jinluan Fuang? Isn't he the strongest fighter under Kublai? Why is he with the daughter of the Prince of Ruyang, Zhao Min? It was no wonder that Song Qingshu was suspicious. Temujin was already very old, and the successor to the Khan had not been decided yet. All the kings were restless. The most powerful kings were Kublai, who governed the Central Plains, Zulwu, who conquered the west, Ali Buj, who guarded the Central Plains, and Chahan, the Prince of Ruyang, who governed the western regions. Chahan had always maintained a neutral attitude when it came to the competition between the kings. Now that Kublai's people were with Zhao Min, Song Qingshu could not help but suspect that Chahan had secretly formed an alliance with Kublai. In actuality, Song Qingshu was overthinking things. Jinluan Fuang's purpose in coming here was to protect Huazheng, not Zhao Min. Although Temujin had many sons, he only had 4: Joki, Chagatai, Kulwatai, and Thor. When the Mongols conquered the world, they all died in battle, and their descendants also suffered heavy losses. Currently, Thor's family is the most powerful. Kublai, Zulwu, Ali Buj, and the other most powerful kings are all Thor's sons. Huazheng was Temujin's only surviving daughter, and she had always had the best relationship with Thor. Her status was very high. When he found out that she was going south to the Central Plains, Kublai immediately sent the strongest fighter under his command, Jinluan Fuang, to protect her. As for whether or not he was trying to curry favor with his aunt, no one knew. Princess Zhao Min, Guijing is indeed a gentleman. Hearing Zhao Min's question, Jinluan Fuang hesitated for a moment before finally replying. If even his enemy, the state preceptor, gives such an evaluation, then he must not be too bad. This person is proficient in the art of war, has great kung fu, and has won the hearts of the people. He is a great threat to the Mongols. Zhao Min was silent for a moment, then asked, "State preceptor, how is Guojing's kung fu compared to yours?" Chapter 308. Guojing is the chancellor of the Wulin world of the south. In the past few years, he has perfected the 9 manual. He has mastered the unparalleled 18 dragon, subduing palms, to the point of combining strength and gentleness. In addition to the legendary left and right mutual combat technique, I'm afraid he can be considered the #1 person in Wulin. Jinluan Fuang purposely paused for a moment before continuing. Before the Grand Assembly of Heroes, I've exchanged blows with him. He really does live up to his reputation. Jinluan Fuang, the princess is asking how your martial arts compare to Guo Jing's. You've been rambling for so long. Can you beat him or not? Before Huazheng and Zhao Min could reply, a monk next to them spoke with a tone of mockery. Jinluan Fuang raised his head and saw that it was one of the experts of the Ruyang Palace, Lu Zhangke. Anger flashed across his face. On one hand, he was worried that these two people were skilled, but on the other hand, he had to give the Prince of Ruyang some face, so he snorted. Mr. Liu, don't be impatient. The Imperial Advisor is about to continue. Zhao Min was actually a bit impatient as well, but Jinluan Fuang was favored by Kublai, so she couldn't just let the two of them start a war of words. With a way out, Jinluan Fuang's expression softened, and he continued, I'm not talented. I could only fight Guo Jing to a draw last time. However, I've been practicing the dragon-elephant prajna art of the Tibetan Buddhism sect. In a few years, I'm confident that I can beat Guo Jing. Jinluan Fuang's tone was very arrogant. He knew that he was weaker than Guo Jing at the Battle of the Sangwon, but he had made some progress in practicing the dragon-elephant prajna art, so he wasn't lying. I only needed the Imperial Advisor to stall Guo Jing for a while. Zhao Min had a look of joy on her face. She shook Huazheng's arm and said, It's not hard to take Guo Jing's life. As long as Anne agrees, I'll get rid of him. A look of confusion flashed across Huazheng's eyes, but she quickly shook her head and refused. No, I won't allow you to do that. Zhao Min had a knowing expression on her face and sighed. Aunt, all these years, because of Guo Jing, the Mongolian army hasn't been able to pass through Xiangyang. Our Mongolian Empire has many talented people. If we want to deal with Guo Jing, we actually have countless ways to deal with him. But my cousin and the others think of Annie, so they always let him go. He doesn't know anything about it. Auntie, do you think it's worth it? It's not worth it. Huazheng smiled faintly. Back then, in order to save the sect master of the Ming dynasty, didn't you also give up your identity as a princess? Auntie, I don't want to talk about him. Zhao Min's eyelashes fluttered as she said expressionlessly, I really don't know what happened between you two. Huazheng sighed and comforted her. In fact, it's not a bad thing to break up like this. After all, he's a traitor who went against the Great Khan. It's not good for anyone to be together. Annie doesn't want you to repeat my mistake. Zhao Min forced a smile and did not reply. The two women each had their own thoughts and soon fell into silence. The many experts who were guarding them looked at each other, and no one dared to speak at that moment. Looking at Zhao Min's beautiful back, Song Qingshu smiled playfully. What happened between her and Zhang Wuji that caused them to turn against each other? Several thoughts flashed through his mind, but he quickly rejected them. He didn't have enough information, so it was really difficult to analyze. Song Qingshu quickly put this problem aside and changed his mind to consider whether he could kidnap this princess who was as beautiful as a fairy and as witty as a fox if he made a move now. The godly archer 8 heroes were easy to deal with. Although their archery skills were superb, this was not an open plain and the distance between them was too close. Coupled with the complex environment of the inn, their archery skills were nothing to be afraid of. Zhao Min's servants Sada, Air, and Ah San were all top-notch experts. However, Ada and Fang Dongbai's arm had been cut off by Zhang Wuji, and Ah Air and Ah San had broken bones all over their bodies. Even if they recovered, their martial arts skills would probably be greatly reduced and could be ignored for the time being. The Xianming Elder's Xianming Holy Palm was extremely insidious and had once left Zhang Sanfeng at his wit's end. When the two of them joined forces, even Zhang Wuji, who had achieved great success in martial arts, would find it difficult to take advantage of them. Not to mention, there was also Jinluan Fuang, who was on par with Guo Jing. Song Qingshu could not help but click his tongue. If they really joined forces, he was afraid that he would only be able to escape. But then he quickly realized that there was no practical benefit in kidnapping Zhao Min at this time. Song Qingshu finally felt a little better. This was a strenuous and unrewarding business, so it was better not to get involved. Ding ling ling, ding ling ling. As Song Qingshu was deep in thought, a melodious sound of copper bells came from the door. Soon, a beautiful woman wearing an apricot yellow Taoist robe walked in. She very naturally held a horsetail whisk in her hand. Her beautiful eyes swept around the inn. When she saw Zhao Min and her group, she could not help but frown slightly. But she had roamed Jianghu for many years and really did not want to show her fear in front of others. She thought that even if she could not defeat them, with her lightness skills, she should have no problem protecting herself. She floated to a quiet place and sat down. She called for the waiter and ordered a few vegetarian dishes. Although this Taoist nun was dressed in plain clothes, her rosy cheeks could not hide the romantic charm between her brows. Song Qingshu smiled and picked up his wine cup and took a sip. What good day it was today. It was rare for so many legendary people to gather together. The Xianming elders He Biweng loved wine, and Lu Zhanke was lustful. It was no secret. Lu Zhanke saw that the loose Taoist robe still could not hide the woman's graceful figure. He rubbed his chin and laughed. What a beautiful and romantic woman. It is a pity that she is a Taoist nun. Zhao Min and Hua Zheng were sitting alone at a table. Now that they were both immersed in the thoughts of women, and they had some private things to say to each other, the attendants wisely spread out and found other tables to sit at. They secretly guarded the two golden branches and jade leaves in the middle. Apart from the divine arrow 8 heroes, who were guarding the vital points, the rest of the people settled down. Jinlu and Fuwang sat at a table. The Xianming elders sat at a table. Ada, and Asan sat at a table. The rest of the bodyguards sat in groups of 2s and 3s. When Lu Zhanke saw the beautiful Taoist nun, he could not restrain himself from flirting with her. But he was afraid of Hua Zheng and Zhao Min, so he did not dare to be too brazen. When she heard his flirting, the beautiful Taoist nun's willowy eyebrows rose and her face turned frosty. She waved her sleeve, and several silver needles shot toward Lu Zhanke's face. The silver needles were fast and urgent. It was too late for the others to save him. Lu Zhanke did not expect that his joke would immediately bring about a fatal disaster. Luckily, his martial arts instincts allowed him to take out his weapon in time. He held the deer head staff in front of him and blocked the silver needles. The Xianming elders were experts in using poison. They saw the cold glint of the silver needles on the deer head staff. They could tell at a glance that there was a strong poison on the needles. Their faces changed. Soul freezing silver needles. You are the scarlet serpent deity, Limacho? Seeing the soul-freezing silver needles blocked by the opponent, Limacho was secretly alarmed. She heard the two exclamations and couldn't help but snort. That's me. Limacho roamed Jianghu. Because of her ruthlessness, a lot of people who mention her name would feel as if they were mourning the death of their parents. The nickname Scarlet Serpent Deity spread like wildfire. Although it was a nice name, Limacho did not like it. Aha! People are afraid of your Scarlet Serpent Deity title, but I don't care about it. Lu Zhanke was careless and almost failed miserably. He felt a bit embarrassed and raised his palm to attack Limacho. Jinlu and Fuwang had a faint smile on his face. He calmly drank his tea and looked like he was watching a show. Although He Biweng had always fought together with his apprentice brother, the two of them had been famous for a long time. He couldn't bring himself to fight a little girl together. He also knew that Lu Zhanke's martial arts were more than enough to deal with Limacho. So he stood where he was and secretly helped his apprentice brother. Before Lu Zhanke could get close, Limacho felt the cold air in his palm. She didn't dare to be careless. She used her lightness kung fu to quickly retreat and raised her palm to meet the attack. 5 poisons divine palm. Lu Zhanke looked at his red and swollen right hand. His face was a bit unsightly. He quickly sealed a few pressure points on his hand and used his internal energy to force the poisonous blood out of his palm. Xianming Divine Palm. You are the Xianming Elders. Li Macho's pink face turned a bit pale. Fortunately, her opponent was careless. She used the poison of the 5 poisons divine palm to resist the power of the opponent's Xianming palm. Even so, she felt a cold air invading her body. She had to force herself not to let her teeth chatter. "You little girl, wait and see what I'll do to you after I take you down." Seeing Li Macho's chest rise and fall rapidly, a fierce look flashed through Lu Zhangke's eyes. Zhao Min and Hua Zheng also noticed what was going on. When they heard Lu Zhangke's lewd and suggestive words, Hua Zheng couldn't help but frown. She was about to speak when Zhao Min raised her hand to stop her. She explained in a low voice, "Gugu, this Taoist nun is a great demon in Jianghu. Many people have died by her hands. It's good to let Master Lu teach her a lesson." Zhao Min knew the way of ruling. Those who loved money used money to lure them. Those who loved power used power to lure them. And those who loved women used beautiful women. Zhao Min didn't want to embarrass her trusted expert for a woman who had nothing to do with her. Besides, this woman wasn't a good person to begin with. Hearing Lu Zhangke's words, Li Macho couldn't help but be furious. She had always kept her body pure. Even her former lover, Lu Zhanyuan, couldn't say anything frivolous. How could she tolerate such obscene words? She raised her hand and shot out a few more soul-freezing silver needles. She took the opportunity to follow with her fly whisk. What a beautiful qigong! Jinluan Fuang put down his teacup and praised sincerely. Li Macho knew that her kung fu wasn't as good as her opponent's, so she changed to a tricky and ever-changing fighting style. The ancient tomb sex qigong was one of the best in the world. Li Macho deliberately made it so that her body was as light as a swallow. She didn't fight Lu Zhangke head-on. The two of them would often separate as soon as they came into contact. Li Macho was always looking for a flaw in her opponent's defense to give him a fatal blow. The Xianming Elder's qigong had always been weak. That was why Lu Zhangke, whose kung fu was far better than Li Macho's, could only fight her to a draw. The soul-freezing silver needles were extremely poisonous. If Lu Zhangke was hit, it was very likely that he would die on the spot. "Apprentice brother, let me help you." He Biwing saw that Lu Zhangke was in such a disadvantageous situation because of his impatience. Although he felt that Lu Zhangke could gradually turn the situation around, he was worried that his apprentice brother would be attacked by the soul-freezing silver needles. He impatiently joined the fight. The Xianming elders were experts in joint attacks. When the two of them joined hands, their power was more than doubled. Even Zhang Wuji had to be wary of them, not to mention Li Macho, whose kung fu was far inferior. Seeing that Li Macho's circle of activity was getting smaller and smaller, Song Qingshu knew that it wouldn't be long before she had nowhere to go. He was hesitating whether or not to help her when suddenly a deep and resounding Buddhist chant came from the door. Amitabha Buddha. Chapter 309. The internal energy of this Buddhist chant was incomparably vigorous. It was an ordinary sound, but it was not inferior to the Buddhist lion's roar. Everyone in the inn felt their hearts tremble. Even Jinluan Fuang, who was a highly skilled fighter, focused his attention and looked warily at the entrance of the inn. The Xianming elders also stopped their attacks and turned around with a frown. Though Li Macho was able to escape, her face became even paler than before. Soon, a monk dressed in a yellow kasaya walked in with a Buddhist staff in his hand. This person was clearly middle-aged, but his face was like jade, and he had a dignified appearance. His pair of almond-shaped eyes exuded a dignified aura, and his bearing made everyone in the inn admire him. What instruction does the Reverend have for us? Though Lu Zhangke was a bit wary of this monk, he felt that if he joined hands with his martial brother, there would be very few people in the world who could contend with them. In addition, he had been interrupted by the monk, so his tone was a bit impolite. A hint of anger flashed through the monk's eyes, but it quickly disappeared. He pressed his eyes against the ground and said, "I don't dare to give you instruction, but I've been searching for this female benefactor whom you two have besieged for many days. I hope the two of you will allow me to subdue this demoness." "Martial brother, I have long heard that the Buddhists of the Central Plains are filthy. Now that I have seen you, you really do live up to your reputation." Hibiwing chuckled and winked at the monk. "Reverend, could it be that you've been tempted by this Taoist nun's beauty? A monk with a Taoist nun, a nun with a Taoist priest. Wonderful, wonderful, huh?" Lu Zhanke also laughed along. The monk's face turned green, and he shouted in a deep voice, "Hey, where did these two arrogant people come from?" The Xianming elders didn't get angry. They giggled and said, "Big monk, there's always a first come, first served rule for everything. We saw this beautiful Taoist nun first, so we brothers are magnanimous. It's not that we can't give you a share later, but it's your fault for cutting the queue." Li Macho's face was filled with anger. If a normal man dared to speak to her like this, she would have made him beg for death. However, regardless of whether it was the Xianming elders or the monk, their martial arts were far above hers. She could only wait and see. "Your mouth is full of filthy words. As the saying goes, even when the Buddha is angry, he will roar like a lion. I am not talented, and I really can't control the anger in my heart." The monk's eyebrows were raised, and he muttered to himself. The people in the inn could only vaguely hear some parts of it. They saw him suddenly raise his hand, and a hot stream of genuine qi shot out from his sleeve. The Xianming elders practiced the martial art of extreme yin and extreme cold, so they were extremely afraid of this kind of extreme yang energy. They did not dare to take the attack head-on and hastily dodged to the sides, leaving behind a circle of scorched black marks where they had been standing. Formless finger of disaster. Song Qingshu was surprised to see the monk attack. The formless finger of disaster was a unique skill of the Shaolin Temple. Apart from Master Xianbei of the Shaolin Temple, there was only Jiu Maji of the Tubo Kingdom who was proficient in it. But Master Xianbei was killed by Jiu Maji in the Shun Jie Temple of Dali. So who was this monk in front of him? Formless finger of disaster. The Xianming elders had been in Jianghu for many years, so they naturally knew the unique skills of the Wulin world. When they saw the monk use the unique skill of the Shaolin Temple, they could not help but be secretly shocked. Their tone also became respectful, far less presumptuous than before. "May I ask for Master's Dharma name? And which eminent monk of the Shaolin Temple are you?" The monk snorted. The movement technique that the Xianming elders used to dodge just now showed that they were peerless masters. Now that they were respectful, he was quite pleased. "My Dharma name is Xian Cheng, so it is the Xian generation eminent monk." The Shaolin Temple's abbot Xian Ci was of the same generation as the abbot, so his martial arts must not be weak. The Xianming elders became even more respectful. "Xian Cheng?" On the contrary, Jinluan Fuwang was shocked. He got up and asked, "May I ask if Master is the Shaolin Temple's #1 martial artist in the last 200 years, the 13 ultimate divine monks?" After being reminded by Jinluan Fuwang, the Xianming elders suddenly remembered a legend in the Wulin world. The 72 ultimate skills of the Shaolin Temple are broad and profound. For an ordinary person to be proficient in one in their lifetime is already considered good. Talented people can often practice several ultimate skills at the same time. It is impossible to be proficient in all 72 ultimate skills at the same time. A few decades ago, the Xian generation of the Shaolin Temple produced a martial arts genius. He actually learned the 13 ultimate skills. It can be said that no one has ever done this before or since. He was known as the #1 martial artist in the Shaolin Temple's last 200 years, and people called him the 13 ultimate divine monks. But there were rumors that he was possessed by the devil, and his martial arts had long been wasted. Could the person in front of them be him? The monk looked at Jinluan Fuwang, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. He said, "I didn't think that there would still be people in the Wulin world who remember this poor monk." Seeing that he admitted it, the people in the inn all had different expressions. The divine Arrow 8 heroes and the other guards all held their weapons and were on guard. The Xianming elders looked at each other and saw the others' fear. In recent years, Jinluan Fuwang felt that his martial arts were the best in the world. He had an eager expression on his face, but he was worried that Xian Cheng's reputation as the #1 martial artist in the Shaolin Temple's last 200 years was too great, so he didn't dare to act rashly. The #1 martial artist in the Shaolin temples last 200 years. Song Qing sneered in his heart. I don't believe that he's stronger than the sweeping monk. In the original work, the sweeping monk killed Xiao Yuanshan and Murong Bo in seconds, defeated Zhou Maji in one move, and easily dealt with Xiao Feng and Murong Fu. It was really a bug in a bug. Song Qing naturally didn't believe that this great master Xiansheng would be stronger than the sweeping monk. Bald monk Xiansheng, you've chased me for thousands of miles. Why? Li Macho said with hatred, unlike the silence of the rest of the people. Which, you bring disaster to Jianghu and kill the innocent. This poor monk is only doing this for the sake of the people. Originally, according to this poor monk's temperament, but the abbot was merciful and ordered me to bring you back to the Shaolin Temple to reflect on your mistakes for the rest of your life. Only then did I let you escape several times. But this time, let's see where you can escape to. Great Master Xiansheng heavily hit the ground with his staff, and the nearby floor cracked inch by inch. In this period of time, Xiansheng had been chasing after Li Macho. But because of Xian Xi's decree, he couldn't kill her many times. As a result, Li Macho took the opportunity to escape using her exquisite lightness kung fu. But Xiansheng's internal energy was deep, and he could always keep up with her. Although Li Macho had temporarily escaped, it was impossible for her to get rid of him. Jianghu is full of heartless people. If I, Li Macho, want to kill, I will kill. Smelly bald monk, what can you do to me? Li Macho's face showed no fear, which made everyone in the inn admire her. Great Master Xiansheng, since you have an old grudge, we brothers will not get involved. Great Master, please do as you please. The Xianming elders laughed a few times and quickly gave way to their teammates. Xiansheng's eyes narrowed. The two old men in front of him had shifty eyes, and with one look, he could tell that they were not good people. But looking at their bodies and breathing techniques, they should not be weak. Moreover, the tall and thin foreign monk beside them was unfathomable, and Xiansheng did not want to cause trouble. Evil creature, you killed dozens of Lu Zhanyuan's family, and when you roamed Jianghu, you indiscriminately killed innocent people. Today, this poor monk will do justice on behalf of heaven. Xiansheng looked at Li Macho and angrily rebuked, waving his staff towards Li Macho. Song Qing, who was far away, could feel the Xiantian Gang Qi on the staff. He was shocked. This monk claimed to be the #1 martial artist in the Shaolin Temple in the past 200 years, and it was not all bragging. In the entire Shaolin Temple, there was probably no one who could use the demon-vanquishing staff technique with such power. Xiansheng's attack was so powerful that Li Macho did not dare to take it head-on. She tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and dodged to the side. The table and chairs where she was just standing were quickly smashed by the staff. Xiansheng had fought with Li Macho many times, so he had expected her to use this move. The heavy staff seemed to have a mind of its own, and with the help of the rebounding force from the ground, it lightly flicked and chased after Li Macho. Li Macho saw that she could not avoid it, so she waved her horsetail whisk and wrapped it around the staff. Using the momentum, she flipped and landed several feet away. Her flexible and slender waist made all the men in the scene drool. TSK, it must be very pleasurable. Lu Zhanka licked his lips and felt his body heat up, but he only dared to think about it in his heart. If he angered this monk, it would be another unnecessary trouble. Li Macho naturally did not know the dirty thoughts in Lu Zhanka's mind. Her pretty face was pale as she looked at her trembling right hand. Although she had used the force to escape Xiansheng's attack, Xiansheng was not careless. He shook his staff, and an invisible gang Qi spread out, breaking the horsetail whisk into pieces. Although Li Macho had let go of her hand early, the web between her thumb and forefinger was still sore and numb. She would not be able to fight for a while. Li Macho did not dare to continue fighting. Taking advantage of the distance between her and Xiansheng, she unhesitatingly used the ancient tomb sect's top lightness kung fu, twisting blue sky, and flew out the window. Xiansheng's martial arts were far superior to Li Macho's, and he had been thinking about how she had escaped from him several times. He had already thought of a way to deal with her. When he saw Limacho flying away, he used all his strength and threw his staff. With the shrill sound of the wind, the staff arrived first. If Limacho continued to escape, it would be difficult for her to escape the fate of being struck by the staff and dying. Limacho knew this, but she had roamed Jianghu for many years. Not only did she rely on her martial arts and poison needles, she also relied on her top-notch combat instincts. She knew that if she dodged, she would not be able to escape from Xiancheng's hands. If she had to spend the rest of her life in a temple, facing the wall and reflecting on her mistakes, she might as well end all her troubles. After weighing the pros and cons, Limacho decided to take the blow from the staff and take the opportunity to escape. She did not dodge. Instead, she focused her Jinqi on her back and waited for the incoming thunderous blow. Lu Zhanke sucked in a breath of cold air. With his eyesight, he could see that there was a huge difference between Limacho and Xiancheng's power. Limacho would not be able to survive this attack. He couldn't help but feel pity for such a beautiful Taoist nun. Of course, even if he wanted to save her now, it was too late. Zhao Min's expression was solemn, and Huazheng also had a look of pity on her face as they watched the tragedy unfold. Whoosh! Just as the staff was about to hit Limacho's back, a chopstick came flying out of nowhere and collided with the staff. The chopstick immediately shattered, but the staff was affected and also deviated from its target. It spun and flew towards a window. Limacho saw the staff that was supposed to be behind her fly towards her, and her face paled. She kicked the ground with the tip of her foot and stopped her body. With an elegant somersault, she landed next to Song Qingshu's table. She looked at him with a puzzled expression. She saw a handsome man pouring himself a cup of wine, and one of the chopsticks on the side of his bowl was missing. She knew what had happened and cupped her hands in thanks. "Thank you for saving me." Chapter 310. It's nothing. Miss Li need not worry about it. Song Qingshu put down his wine cup and smiled faintly, observing Limacho from a close distance. She had a pink face and rosy cheeks, a large chest, and a straight waist. With such a tall figure, she must have a pair of slender long legs under the loose Taoist robe. She really was a stunning beauty. According to the original novel, her beauty should not be inferior to Xiaolong Nu. Now that he saw her, it was indeed true. Limacho felt uncomfortable standing there when Song Qingshu's gaze swept over her. If a normal man looked at her like this, she would have already turned hostile. But the other's gaze was warm, and there was more admiration in his eyes. Plus, he had just saved her. It was hard for Limacho to feel resentment, and could only stand there quietly. But in all these years, Limacho had never been looked at like this by a man. Her face inevitably became hot, and soon her cheeks turned red. After this change, all the gazes of the entire and focused on Song Qingshu. Everyone had different expressions. Jinluan Fuwang's expression changed slightly. He reckoned that even he would have to temporarily avoid Xiancheng's thunderous attack. He didn't think that this young man would be able to use a mere chopstick to send the Buddhist staff that weighed tens of kilograms flying. That level of skill and control of strength and precision was truly shocking. Zhao Min finally saw Song Qingshu's appearance. She couldn't help but stare blankly. She gave a light sound of surprise and said with a startled face, "Why is it him? Min, do you know him?" Huazheng felt that the young man had a special kind of calmness and calmness. Hearing Zhao Min's muttering, she couldn't help but look at her curiously. Zhao Min still hadn't recovered from a shock. Strange. Why does he look completely different from before? In the past, Song Qingshu had the nickname of Jade Face Meng Chong. His appearance was naturally elegant, but before, he was narrow-minded, causing his face to always have a gloomy and untamed air. Now, as Song Qingshu's power became higher and higher, and with Ouyang Feng's words on the Divine Dragon Island, his entire temperament immediately changed. His aura was restrained, and he was elegant and out of this world. Amipa, who exactly are you? Why did you save this demoness? Seeing Song Qingshu hit his Buddhist staff with a chopstick, Xiansheng was endlessly shocked. Before he left the Shaolin Temple, except for that person in the Sutra Depository Pavilion, he did not put anyone else in his eyes. He didn't expect to meet so many experts in a small inn. Although the two wretched-looking old men and the foreign monk with the big will couldn't compare to him, they shouldn't be too far off. However, the young man in front of him looked to be in his 20s, but he gave off an unfathomable feeling just by sitting there. When did such a powerful young man exist in this world? I'm just a passerby. When I saw that this lady was about to lose her life, I couldn't bear to see her die. That's why I lent a helping hand. Please forgive me, Grandmaster. The world had just learned that he failed to assassinate Kangxi and died. Song Qingshu knew in his heart that right now his identity was sensitive, hence he did not want to reveal his real name. When Xiansheng saw that Song Qingshu did not answer him, a hint of anger flashed briefly on his face. He quickly went through the list of young elites in the game and tried to guess the identity of the man in front of him. Northern Xiaofeng? His age and appearance didn't match. Southern Morong? His martial arts didn't seem to be that high. Could it be that person? So it's Zhang Jiaozhu of the Ming Dynasty. Why do you need to be so secretive? Xiansheng couldn't help but mock him. Song Qingshu laughed involuntarily and turned to look at Zhao Min. Even if I'm willing to be the princess's sweetheart, I'm afraid she won't be happy. Hearing Song Qingshu's frivolous words, Zhao Min suddenly felt a trace of anger. She snorted coldly and grabbed a bow, an arrow from the guard's quiver. She threw it at Song Qingshu. Because Zhao Min was born into a noble family, many top martial arts masters taught her martial arts. Therefore, she had the demeanor of a master. She threw a bow and arrow casually, but it was not inferior to an arrow shot by a warrior in the army. With Song Qingshu's current martial arts, he naturally didn't care too much about it. He calmly raised his hand and firmly caught the arrow with 2 fingers. With an as expected expression, he said, "Master Xiansheng, you've seen it. Unless Mongolia uses the custom of using bows and arrows as embroidered balls." Zhao Min's pink face turned cold. Just as she was about to explode, she suddenly smiled. Her smile was like the first melting of ice and snow. "Song Xiaoxia, I haven't seen you for a while. I didn't expect your martial arts to progress so quickly. It seems that Wu Dang sect's martial arts are indeed broad and profound. What a powerful character." Song Qingshu smiled wryly. For many years, Shaolin and Wu Dang had never been on good terms. First, Shaolin Temple thought that Zhang Sanfeng was a Shaolin traitor. Wu Dang's martial arts were secretly learned from Shaolin Temple. Of course, Wu Dang's people were not happy. The martial arts they learned were obviously created by Zhang Sanfeng. Second, Shaolin Temple forced Zhang Chuishan to his death. At the same time, Yu Dayan's bones were broken by Shaolin Temple's secret skill, Jin Gang Finger. Therefore, although both sects were famous and upright sects in the martial arts world, their relationship had always been very tense. Xiansheng was crazy about martial arts. He heard that Wu Dang Zhang Sanfeng's martial arts had reached the acme of perfection. On top of that, the conflict between the two sects was deep in his bones. Therefore, when he left the mountain, he always had the thought of going to Wu Dang to meet him. Hearing Zhao Min expose Song Qingshu's identity as a Wu Dang disciple, Xiansheng sneered. "So you are the disciple of that Shaolin traitor. No wonder you were so arrogant." As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere in the inn suddenly became tense. Zhao Min also did not expect that Xiansheng would be so ruthless. Zhang Sanfeng was a person of virtue and prestige, yet he directly called him a Shaolin traitor. As a Wu Dang disciple, Song Qingshu's action involved the founder's pure reputation. Perhaps he would not rest until he died. Sure enough, Song Qingshu's complexion changed. Although he did not have any feelings for Wu Dang Pai, moreover, he had already been expelled from Wu Dang by Zhang Sanfeng, but his body had already been branded as a Wu Dang Pai disciple. If today he allowed Shaolin people to insult Zhang Sanfeng, and this news spread out, the reputation that he had painstakingly cleaned would not look good. Song Mao is not talented, but I also know that Shaolin's martial arts pay particular attention to using Buddhist teachings to dissolve the evil energy in martial arts. The higher the Buddhist teachings, the higher the martial arts. As a Buddhist disciple, you do not have a merciful heart, and when you speak, you are full of greed, anger, and delusion. You're truly not worthy of being called a senior monk of the Xian generation. Song Qingshu's tone was calm. Comparing the two, the onlookers really did feel that Xiancheng was at a disadvantage. Hearing Song Qingshu's words, Xiancheng was indescribably surprised. He thought that it was exactly the same as what the person in the sutra depository said. But Song Qingshu was young. Xiancheng did not believe that he really had such knowledge. He thought that he was just a blind cat running into a dead mouse. He couldn't help but snort. Wu Dang is known as a righteous sect, but because of your greed for beauty, you saved the devil Limacho. With a disciple like this, the style of Wu Dang Pai can be seen clearly. Hearing Xiancheng's words, Xia Qingqing unhappily tugged at Song Qingshu. Limacho stood there awkwardly, but Song Qingshu himself was very calm. First, Song Mao is no longer a Wu Dang disciple. That Zhaomin Junzhu can testify for me. As he said this, he raised his hand to signal Zhao Min, but all he got in return was a soft snort. Song Qingshu did not mind and continued. Second, great monk, with which eye of yours saw that I saved this Li Dao Zhang because of my greed for beauty. Just now, you looked at this which with shifty eyes. Everyone here saw it. Xiancheng's tone did not lack a hint of mockery. I can testify for great master Xiancheng on this point. Zhao Min clapped her hands as if she wanted the world to be in chaos. Just now, when Song Xiaoxiao looked at this Li Dao Zhang, it was as if he wanted to strip her naked. Halfway through, Zhao Min purposely stopped talking, but her meaning was already self-evident. Seeing that their master had spoken, the Xianming elders added oil to the fire, accompanied by unbridled and obscene laughter. Limacho was so angry that her whole body trembled. Although she was worried that their martial arts were high, she still could not help but tremble and prepare to attack. At this time, Song Qingshu gently pressed her shoulder and shook his head slightly. Since she was in Jianghu, she had always kept herself clean. Not to mention coming into contact with men. Even if a man looked at her, Limacho would most likely blind his eyes. At this time, Song Qingshu's hand was on her shoulder, but for the first time, he did not get angry. Feeling the heat from his palm on her shoulder, Limacho suddenly felt a trace of shyness like a young girl. Seeing that Limacho gradually calmed down, Song Qingshu looked at Xiancheng and said, I have a story here. Great monk, you can comment on it. Everyone in the inn was puzzled, but Song Qingshu only said, once upon a time, there was an old monk who was traveling with a young monk. On the way, they came across a river. They saw a woman who wanted to cross the river, but did not dare to. The old monk took the initiative to carry the woman across the river. Then he put the woman down and hurried on with the young monk. The young monk could not help but mutter along the way, What's wrong with Master? How dare he carry a woman across the river? As they walked, he thought about it. Finally, he could not help but say, Master, did you break the rules? Why did you carry a woman? The old monk sighed. I've already let go, but you still can't. Song Qingshu quickly stopped talking, but everyone present understood what he meant. Thinking that the dignified Master Xiancheng, the #1 person in Shaolin in the past 200 years, was compared to a young monk who couldn't let go, they all revealed a trace of a smile, as if they were watching a good show. Song Xiaoxia is eloquent. Unfortunately, no matter how you twist words and force logic, you can't hide the fact that you saved Limacho, the demoness. Seeing Xiancheng's big bald head turn red, Zhao Min held back her laughter and spoke to help him. Princess is right. Song Mao usually has no hobbies, but he has no resistance to demoness. When he sees demoness, he can't help but have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Song Qingshu suddenly changed the topic, looked at Zhao Min and said with a smile, but when the word demoness comes from Princess's mouth, it really doesn't sound convincing. When it comes to demonesses, who can compare to the princess? Hearing Song Qingshu admit that he liked demoness and called Zhao Min a demoness, Princess Huajing could not help but laugh. She leaned over and whispered in Zhao Min's ear. As she spoke, she also used her eyes to signal in Song Qingshu's direction. Zhao Min's pretty face quickly turned red and white. 8 heroes of divine archery. Shoot them to death. Zhao Min said coldly. Yes. The 8 heroes of divine archery did not hesitate and pulled the bowstrings in one go. They were all excellent archers. It was not difficult for them to shoot 3 arrows at the same time. Moreover, their shooting speed was extremely astonishing. After shooting 1 arrow, the other 3 arrows were already on the bowstrings, without the slightest pause. Although there were only 8 people, in the blink of an eye, a rain of arrows poured down in the direction of Song Qingshu. Chapter 3:11. Song Qingshu's expression turned serious. He pressed his hands on the table and pulled it up, flipping it over and using it as a shield. The wooden table flipped in the air at an astonishing speed. The arrows that were shot at it were either knocked away or stuck on it. In this way, the terrifying rain of arrows was completely blocked. Taking advantage of the godly arrow 8 heroes' stupefaction, Song Qingshu shot out the remaining chopstick in his hand. Whoosh! The chopsticks flew toward Zhao Min with a terrifying and sharp sound as they sliced through the air. The Mongolian guards turned pale with fright, but the chopsticks were as fast as lightning. A normal person would not be able to react in time. Only the elites in the field could barely move. The Xianming elders and Jinlun Fuwang were too far away and couldn't help in time, even if they wanted to. Da, Er and San, who were next to Zhao Min, turned pale with fright. Da subconsciously slashed at the chopstick with his sword. Before Ada became a slave in the Ruyang Palace, his name was Fong Dongbai. He was once the head of the Beggar clan's 10 great elders. His swordsmanship was exquisite, and he was famous in Jianghu. Because his sword was so fast, it was as if he had 7 or 8 arms. Fong Dongbai had just seen Song Qingshu use only a chopstick to knock away Xiancheng's Buddhist staff that weighed tens of kilograms. He knew that the internal energy in the chopstick was no small matter. He didn't dare to hope that he could stop it with his sword. Instead, he used a little force on his sword, hoping to slightly change the chopstick's trajectory and let Zhao Min escape. What made Fong Dongbai's heart break was that his sword's strike hit nothing but air. He could only hope that Er and San, who were behind him, could stop the chopstick. Otherwise, if anything happened to Zhao Min, none of them would have a good ending. Almost at the same time, Fong Dongbai swung his sword. Er and San also reached out to grab the chopstick. They came from Shaolin Temple in the western regions and had practiced King Kong Palm and King Kong Finger to the peak. Most of their martial arts were in their hands. Their hands were as hard as metal, and it was as easy as flipping their palms. Unexpectedly, when they tried to grab the chopstick, they felt a burning pain in their palms. The two of them couldn't be bothered with the threat of blood on their palms. They looked at Zhao Min with trepidation. He saw that Zhao Min's face was pale, but there were no injuries on her body. The chopstick was stuck in the pillar behind her, and there was a broken red hairpin hanging from it. As Zhao Min's trusted guard, he naturally knew that the red hairpin was the token of love that Zhao Min had given to Zhang Wuji in the past. This subordinate is incompetent and has frightened the princess. Ada, Er, and San hurriedly kneeled down and begged for forgiveness. The rest of the guards also come to their senses and draw their weapons to protect Zhao Min and Hua Zheng in the middle. The Xianming elders shouted angrily, and together they pounced towards Song Qingshu. Jinlun Fuwang also broke out in a cold sweat. In a moment of carelessness, he almost caused the 2 nobles to die in front of his eyes. However, he could see that Song Qingshu had shown mercy, so he hesitated for a moment and did not join the fight. Instead, he stood beside Zhao Min and Hua Jing to protect them. In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them had already exchanged several blows. Song Qingshu was fighting 1 against 2. His palm technique was simple and exquisite, and he did not seem to be at a disadvantage at all. 18 dragons subduing palms. The Xianming elders made a sound of surprise. They were somewhat apprehensive of the world's #1 palm technique and did not want to fight with him for a long time. Instead, they wanted to take advantage of the fact that Song Qingshu was young and wanted to join forces with them. They wanted to use their decades of training to compete with his inner energy. The palm technique of a Xianming divine palm was exquisite. Moreover, the Xianming elders were proficient in joint attacks. In a hurry, Song Qingshu was actually forced to fight with them head-on, whether it was intentional or not. The three of them stood quietly in the middle of the field. The green air on the faces of the Xianming elders became more and more vigorous. The surrounding people could see a visible green mass of air passing from the arms of the two to Song Qingshu. Big Brother Song. Seeing that Song Qingshu was fighting one against two, Xia Qingqing quickly pulled out her golden snake sword. She wanted to go forward and help him, but she was worried that it would attract the other masters of the Mongolian side to join the fight. She could not help but hesitate in place. Li Macho secretly took out 3 freezing silver needles from her sleeve. She also wanted to find an opportunity to help. Constantly paying attention to the situation, Song Qingshu could not help but frown. He opened his mouth and said to the 2 women, You, and elderly go first. We will meet at the place we agreed on. Seeing that Song Qingshu could still speak calmly while using his inner energy, not only were the Xianming elders shocked, but the rest of the people in the inn were also shocked. Big Brother Song, I will not leave. If we die, we will die together. Xia Qingqing pursed her lips, but her tone was extremely firm. Silly girl, it is not like you do not know my martial arts. If I want to leave, who in the world can stop me? If you stay here, they have many masters. In order to protect you, the 2 of us may really die together. Song Qingshu laughed bitterly and hurriedly used secret voice sending to say. Hearing him say that they would die together, Xia Qingqing's ears turned red. She was no longer the unruly and willful young mistress of the Wen Castle. Of course, she knew what was important and what was not. She knew that what Song Qingshu said was not false. She nodded and said with red eyes, Okay, I will always wait for you at that place. Then she ran out of the window. Li Macho was more experienced in Jianghu. She knew that she would not be of any help to this level of masters if she stayed. After hesitating for a moment, she also cupped her hands and thanked Song Qingshu. Thank you for saving me today. I will definitely repay you in the future. Then she also ran out of the window. Demon woman, where are you going? Seeing that Li Macho was about to escape, Xin Cheng roared. He spread his wings and shot a formless finger of disaster at Li Macho's back. Song Qingshu's eyes narrowed. He shook off the Xianming elders with his palm, and with the help of the recoil, he came between Xin Cheng and Li Macho. He used his fist to disperse Xin Cheng's formless finger of disaster. I'm a person who does not expect to repay favors. Of course, if Elder Taoist wants to marry me, Song Mao will also be very happy. Hearing Song Qingshu's teasing words coming from behind, Li Macho almost stumbled and fell when she jumped out of the window. Great demon subduing fist, 9, Emmanuel, Xiansheng exclaimed and stopped chasing. He looked at Song Qingshu with a dignified expression. Great master is indeed worthy of being the martial arts genius of the Shaolin Temple. You can even recognize the martial arts of the 9 Emmanuel. Song Qingshu looked at him in surprise, and his tone became friendly. As a Wudong disciple, you do not use your own sex martial arts. Instead, you use the beggar clan's 18 dragon subduing palms and the long-lost 9 Emmanuel. It can be seen that Wudong's sex martial arts are really not elegant. Xin Cheng sneered. Song Qingshu was speechless for a moment. The good impression he had of him disappeared without a trace. Was this smelly monk cheated on by the people of the Wudong sect before he became a monk? Otherwise, why would he have such a big grudge against the Wudong sect? What made him even more speechless was that he was obviously no longer a Wudong disciple, but he still had to protect the reputation of the Wudong sect. Great monk, you may not know, but Song Mao made a big mistake in the past and was expelled from the Wudong sect by Tai Shifu. As long as I'm not taken back by him, I really do not dare to use the Wudong divine skill. Otherwise, with Wudong sex, pure yang limitless skill, Taiji fist, Taiji sword, and so on, it would not be a problem for me to use the unique skill of the Shaolin Temple's eminent monk. According to the rules of the Jianghu, what Song Qingshu said was reasonable and reasonable. Others could not force him to use the Wudong sex martial arts to fight the enemy. Xiancheng's heart was filled with regret. Suddenly, he felt that fighting with Song Qingshu was dull and boring. Even if he won, he would not be able to damage the reputation of the Wudong sect. Not to mention the opponent's martial arts were really unfathomable. If he was unlucky enough to fight to a draw, or even lose, where would he put his face? Xiancheng stood there in silence, his complexion constantly changing. On the other side, the two Xianming elders were knocked away by his Song Qingshu's palm strike. They felt their blood and qi were boiling, and they had already suffered a significant internal injury. Actually, they had brought this upon themselves. If they had used their own moves with their decades of experience in joint attacks, even if they were no match for Song Qingshu, they would not have been injured so quickly. Previously, they had suffered the same loss under Zhang Wuji's hands because they wanted to take advantage of him. At first, they thought that it was impossible for any young man under the heavens to cultivate Zhang Wuji's incomparably vast internal energy. Who would have thought that reality would give them a hard slap in the face? Liu Zhangke and He Biwing each drew their weapons from their bosoms. It must be known that these two men were famous for their Xianming divine palm. Other than when they fought Zhang Wuji, the people of the Riyang Palace had never seen these two men use weapons. One was a short staff with a deer's head, the other was a crane's beak with two pins. Both of them were strange weapons, and their moves were extremely strange. Combined with the occasional sneak attack from the Xianming divine palm, even Zhang Wuji, who had mastered the Xianming divine palm, had almost been defeated by these two men. Because the scene of the two Xianming elders suffering a loss fell into the eyes of the two nobles, they felt a little embarrassed. They were about to raise their spirits and fight Song Qingshu again when Zhao Min's indifferent voice was heard. "Mr. Liu, Mr. He, please come back for now. I have heard that Shaolin Temple is the Mount Tai and the Big Dipper of the righteous Wulin world, the embodiment of upholding justice. Master Xiancheng is about to execute the accomplices of the demoness Li Macho. It won't be too late to settle the score between you two gentlemen and him later." Zhao Min had just recovered from the shock when she saw Xiancheng's expression. She knew that it was impossible to use the conflict between Shaolin Temple and Wudong Temple to provoke a fight between him and Song Qingshu, so she changed the topic to Li Macho. If there were only Xiancheng and Song Qingshu in the inn, it would be fine. Even if Song Qingshu rescued Li Macho, the two men would have misgivings about each other's martial arts. They would probably exchange some pleasantries and not really fight. But now that they were under Zhao Min's control, if Xiancheng allowed Song Qingshu to rescue Li Macho and did not do anything about it, Zhao Min's subordinates would exaggerate and spread the news, and the reputation of Shaolin Temple would be ruined. Xiancheng was a martial arts fanatic, but not an idiot. He knew that Zhao Min wanted to kill him with a borrowed knife, but he had no choice but to jump into the trap. What's more, his martial arts were unparalleled, so he felt that it wouldn't be difficult to deal with Song Qingshu first and then settle the score with Zhao Min later. He laughed loudly and said, "Fine, I have long heard that the Beggar Clan's 18 dragon subduing palms is the #1 palm technique in the world. This poor monk will use Shaolin Temple's #1 palm technique, Bouri Palm." Finished speaking, without waiting for Song Qingshu to answer, Xiancheng's palm pressed down on his body. Min, I see that this Master Xiancheng's palm technique is slow, light, and doesn't seem to have much strength. Why is that Prince Song acting as if he is facing a great enemy, constantly dodging? After watching for a while, Princess Huajing couldn't help but turn her head to ask Zhao Min. Chapter 312. What kind of game are they playing? Zhao Min was similarly puzzled by the scene, and she couldn't help but frown. You may not know, but the Prajna palm is the most profound palm technique of the Shaolin Temple. The Prajna Buddhist Dharma emphasizes emptiness, So the power of the Prajna palm is invisible, and there is no feeling, perception, thought, action, and consciousness. The power of the palm is emptiness, and emptiness is the power of the palm, so it doesn't seem to have much power to outsiders. Only those facing the enemy can feel the danger in the palm. Jinlu and Fuang heard Huazhang and Zhao Min's discussion and quickly explained. Huazhang was at a loss and couldn't help but shake her head and said, "The Buddhist Dharma of the Central Plains is indeed obscure and difficult to understand. No wonder Father likes the teachings of the Tantric sect more." Jinlu and Fuang's face was full of pride. The Mongolian Empire was now strong and powerful, and all the sects had sent messengers to preach to the Mongolian royal family. This included not only the Buddhism of the Central Plains, Xuanzhen, and other sects, but also the Zoroastrianism of the Western regions, Buddhism of the Western regions, and so on. However, the most successful was the Tantric sect of Tubo. The masters of the Tantric sect were all treated as guests of honor by the Mongolians. He himself was appointed as the state preceptor. Basiba of the Nalanda temple was honored as the imperial preceptor, and even the second-generation disciple of the Zhenyan sect, Songjia, was highly regarded by King Alibuj. It seemed that in the near future, the Tantric sect would become the Mongolian national religion. Princess is right. The monks of the Central Plains love to say things that are confusing and difficult to understand. If you ask them to explain it, they won't be able to explain it clearly. They even say that you haven't understood it yet, and that you will understand it when you understand it. These words can deceive the ignorant commoners, but if they want to deceive the great Genghis Khan, they are really making a fool of themselves. The state preceptor is too serious. Because the teachings of the Central Plains Zen sect are obscure and difficult to understand, there are indeed many monks who deceive the world. However, there is no lack of people who are truly enlightened. Zhao Min paused and shook her head slightly. But their teachings often confuse the learned monks. How can they let the commoners understand? While everyone was talking about Buddhism, the fight between the two was extremely dangerous. Song Qingshu's 18 dragons subduing palms were incomparably ferocious. But how could Xuanqing's Prajna palm be empty and powerless? Every time their palms collided, Song Qingshu felt as if he had used all his strength to hit a ball of cotton, and his palm energy would unknowingly be turned into nothingness by his opponent. After dozens of moves, Song Qingshu felt extremely uncomfortable. Great monk, you don't seem to have cultivated to the highest realm of the Prajna palm, emptiness to the end. Song Qingshu remembered that in the original work, Xianxi had used the Prajna palm to fight against Xiao Feng's 18 dragons subduing palms without falling into a disadvantageous position. Only at the last moment did she comprehend the true meaning of emptiness to the end. I didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable. It's not easy for ordinary people to know about the Prajna palm, but you actually know that the highest realm of the Prajna palm is emptiness to the end. Xiancheng revealed a strange expression, but looking at your 18 dragons subduing palms, it seems that you haven't cultivated to the peak. Great monk's eyes are indeed like torches, Song Qingshu praised. Since you and I haven't practiced the palm technique to the peak, it will be difficult to determine a winner if we continue fighting like this. How about we stop here? Xiancheng was quite moved, but soon a hesitant expression appeared on his face. Today you saved the female devil, causing countless innocent lives to be lost in her hands in the future. This poor monk will naturally enlighten you for this sin. Xiancheng understood that although he had temporarily gained the upper hand, it would not be easy to defeat Song Qingshu in a short period of time. But so far, he had only used the Prajna palm. If he used the other 12 unique skills at the same time, they would complement each other, and the power of his moves would more than double. In addition, he had not used the exorcism staff technique that he was more proficient in, so Xiancheng was confident that if they really fought, it would not be a problem for him to teach Song Qingshu a lesson. Great monk, may I ask if killing a few people is a greater sin, or killing 10 million people is a greater sin? Song Qingshu asked while defending against Xiancheng's continuous attacks. Xiancheng was startled and quickly said, Although Buddhism has a saying that all living beings are equal and that everything in the world is an illusion, killing one person or killing 10 million makes no difference. But this poor monk lives in the mortal world and is unable to comprehend that transcendent realm. From this poor monk's point of view, killing 10 million people is a greater sin. That's right, Limacho only killed a few people, and her evil is only a small one. On the other hand, the princess over there has thousands of troops under her command, invading the Central Plains and slaughtering thousands of our people. That is the true evil. You don't eliminate the great evil, but you don't let go of the small evil. Could it be that you are worried about the many experts around the princess, so you pretend not to see it, and can only bully the lonely Limacho? Song Qingshu used the twin dragons emerge from the water, and with one palm, he shook Xiancheng away. The corner of his mouth revealed a cold smile. Scoundrel! How can this poor monk be afraid of them? Xiancheng said angrily. He withdrew his power and didn't continue to attack. This Song Xiaoxia is really eloquent. When two armies fight, it depends on their own ability. There is no right or wrong. Moreover, this time, we're going south to discuss peace with the Song Imperial Court. If the peace talks are successful, who knows how many innocent lives will be saved. This merit is not something that Limacho, a cold-blooded demoness who slaughters innocent people, can compare to. Zhao Min looked at the broken red hairpin on the pillar and felt a sense of loss in her heart. She looked at Song Qingshu with a trace of hatred in her eyes. I don't know that when the princess massacred the six sects, even Kong Xing, one of the 4 divine monks of the Shaolin Temple, was beheaded by your subordinates. Does this count as killing innocent people? Hearing Zhao Min say that this trip was to the south to discuss peace, Song Qingshu was secretly shocked. If the Mongols stopped fighting with the Southern Song dynasty, it could be assumed that they changed their strategy of attacking in all directions. If nothing unexpected happened, the Mongols would definitely attack another country with all their strength. It was just that he didn't know whether it would be the Jin Kingdom, the Qing Kingdom, or the Ming Dynasty of the Western region, or the Hui tribe. If they attacked the Ming Dynasty, of course he would be happy to see it. But if they attacked the Qing Kingdom, he hadn't finished digesting the strength of the Qing Kingdom. If the Mongols attacked at this time, it would be very bad. Song Qingshu was still deep in thought, but Xiancheng glared at the Mongols and said, "You are that demoness Zhao Min?" At that time, Abbot Xianxi led the senior monks of the temple out and arranged for Kong Wan and the others to stay in the temple. Unexpectedly, Zhao Min used the 10 fragrant muscle softening powder to capture all the monks and bring them to the Wanan temple. It almost led to the destruction of the Shaolin temple. Moreover, Master Kong Xing was beheaded, which was a great humiliation to the Shaolin temple. Although Xiancheng heard them call Zhao Min as the princess, he didn't pay much attention to it. After all, there were many princesses and princesses in the Mongolian kingdom. It wasn't until Song Qingshu pointed it out that he realized that this delicate girl in front of him was actually the enemy of the Shaolin temple. Demoness die. Xiancheng's eyes widened in anger, and he slammed his palm toward Zhao Min. Hearing the conversation between the two, the godly Arrow 8 heroes were already on guard. When they saw Xiancheng pouncing towards them, they drew their bows and shot towards him. Seeing this, Xiancheng stopped and didn't dodge. He took a deep breath, and his monk's robe became extremely fluttering, like an inflated balloon. He stood upright in his original position. When the arrows hit his body, there was only the sound of metal clashing. When the arrows hit his monk's robe, it was as if they were bounced off by an invisible force and all fell to the ground beside his feet. After the rain of arrows, Xiancheng's monk's robe was not damaged at all. Song Qingshu's eyes narrowed. Jinlu and Fuwang and the 2 elders of Xianming also cried out involuntarily, "Diamond, indestructible body!" Xiancheng didn't say anything. While the godly Arrow 8 heroes and the others were still in a daze, he opened his mouth and roared. Buddhist lions roar. Quickly protect the princess and the princess. Jinlu and Fuwang was shocked and angry. He quickly raised his big golden wheel in front of the 2 women. The two elders of Xianming, Air, and Asen also stood in front of the two women and blocked most of the sound waves for them. The other bodyguards under Zhao Min weren't so lucky. They all covered their ears in pain and fell to the ground, wailing. Although the godly Arrow 8 heroes' archery skills were outstanding, they didn't specialize in internal energy. They weren't much better than the ordinary bodyguards. Not long after, they were shaken to the point where their mouths and noses bled, and they all fell to the ground. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. The people in front of Zhao Min and Huajing weren't much better off. Jinlu and Fuwang's expression was grave. The faces of the two elders of Xianming trembled slightly. Because they had just suffered serious internal injuries, it was obvious that they were almost at their limit. Air, and San were trembling, and a trace of blood slowly seeped out of the corner of their mouths. Song Qingshu wasn't directly in front of Xiancheng's attack. With his internal energy, the lion's roar naturally didn't affect him. He calmly moved a chair over and sat down. He used the green dragon absorbs water and sucked up a wine jug from the counter. He poured himself a drink and watched the show from the side. After a while, Xiancheng's lion's roar finally finished. Because Zhao Min and Huazheng were protected by many masters, they weren't seriously injured. However, most of their subordinates were swaying left and right. It was obvious that they had lost the ability to fight. Only Jinlu and Fuwang, the two elders of Xianming, Air and Asan, were able to stand unscathed. Because Air and Asan had been injured by Zhang Wuji, they only had about the 7th level of their peak strength after recovering. Therefore, they had suffered serious internal injuries after being shaken by Xiancheng's lion's roar. I heard that Kong Xing died under the hands of Shaolin Master from the West regions, King Kong Finger. If I'm not wrong, it should be you. Xiancheng's eyesight was very good. With one look, he could tell that San cultivated the King Kong Finger. So what if I killed him? That bald donkey's dragon's claw is said to be amazing, but it's nothing more than that. Although Asan knew that he couldn't win, he didn't want to be at a disadvantage in terms of momentum. Okay, I'll use the dragon's claw to fight against your King Kong Finger. Xiancheng was expressionless. As soon as he finished speaking, he moved his left hand, and his right hand, which carried a gust of wind, went to grab the major acupuncture point on Asan's left shoulder. Asan had fought a life-and-death battle with Kong Xing before, so he naturally knew that this was the dragon's claw's cloud holding form. He hurriedly used the King Kong Finger to poke Xiancheng's elbow. He knew that his King Kong Finger could split rocks and leave a bloody hole on a person's body. If Xiancheng wanted to save his arm, he would have to retreat. Xiancheng didn't panic. He pressed his right hand down and blocked Asan's King Kong Finger. Asan felt a sharp pain coming from his fingertips. It was as if his fingers had poked a piece of 1,000-year iron. He could feel his fingers breaking inch by inch. Before Asan could react, Xiancheng's left hand, which was supposed to be a feint, had already grabbed his throat. Ada and Air turned pale with fright and hurriedly rushed over to help Asan. Xiancheng smiled and quickly twisted Asan's neck. Kong Xing, I let him die under your famous technique. I hope you can rest in peace. Chapter 313. Ada and Air were both shocked and angry. Although they were not brothers, they had been servants of the Ryong Palace for many years, so their relationship was even deeper than that of ordinary brothers. Seeing that Asan was killed by Xiancheng, their eyes immediately turned red, and they rushed over to take revenge. Ada and Dong Bai were famous for their fast swordplay. Although they only had one hand now, the speed of their swordplay did not decrease at all. They were the first to reach Xiancheng. Xiancheng was expressionless. His left hand turned into a claw and pointed at the tip of the sword. Ada was stunned. He thought that even if Xiancheng had learned the Vajra finger, there was no way he could fight a sharp sword head-on. Therefore, although he felt that Xiancheng's fingers were as white as jade with a faint layer of crystal flowing, he did not care too much. With a hideous smile, he circulated all the power in his body, thinking that he could cut off half of Xiancheng's palm with this sword. The tip of the sword and the fingertip collided, but the imagined blood and flesh splattered did not appear. Ada felt a great force coming from the sword and could not move forward anymore. Ada furrowed his brows and pushed the sword forward with all his might. The blade of the sword soon curved in an exaggerated way. Xiansheng shouted and pushed forward with his fingertip. The sword broke inch by inch like it was made of paper. Ada turned pale with fright, but he was still a first-rate master. He quickly took the opportunity to retreat several feet. Looking at the bare sword hilt in his hand, he suddenly thought of a legendary supreme skill of the Shaolin Temple. He could not help but cry out, "One Finger Zen!" The One Finger Zen of the Shaolin Temple was an extremely profound martial art. Ordinary monks would not be able to grasp it without decades of practice. Since the founding of the Shaolin Temple, the number of people who had mastered this skill could be counted on one's fingers. It was said that after mastering it, the finger would be invincible and could take acupoints from a distance. Its power was even greater than the Duan style of Dali's solitary yang finger. However, because too few people had mastered it, it was not as famous in Jianghu as the solitary yang finger. All of this happened in a flash. Aer had already used the Vajra palm to attack Xiansheng's right chest. Aer, San, and Gang Tong were the masters of the Vajra sect in the western region. In the past, Zhao Min used a trick and had Gang Tong plot against Zhang Sanfeng. Even with Zhang Sanfeng's divine creation realm cultivation base, he was still hit by Gang Tong's Vajra Prajna palm and was severely injured. It almost caused the Wudong sect to be destroyed by Zhao Min and her party. Aer had mastered the external Vajra sect to the peak, then from the outside to the inside. He had comprehended the superior internal energy that the Vajra sect did not have. Gang Xiang's Qi and Gang. He did not believe that Aer's power was more powerful than Gang. San and Gang. Wu Chang could not. And Aer did not have Aer. He and Gang and Xiang were not. Gang. Xiansheng had just forced Ada back. Sure enough, it was too late for him to dodge. He could only raise his palm to meet the attack. It was the Prajna palm that he had used against Song Qing-shu. The two palms collided, but it was not the internal energy that he had imagined. Aer only felt that the power of his palm was like a clay ox entering the sea, as if it had been turned into nothingness. Before he had time to be shocked, he felt a tremendous force coming from Xiansheng's palm. Aer screamed and staggered back in a sorry state. With every step he took, the limestone slabs were all shattered. When he finally stopped, he could not help but kneel on the ground, and with a wah sound, he spat out a large mouthful of blood, first turning the opponent's power into nothingness, then taking advantage of the opportunity to push forward. The Prajna palm is really mysterious. Song Qing-shu was speechless. He thought that even his 18 dragon-subduing palms was trying his best to avoid a head-on collision with the opponent. Aer's Vajra palm was strong and fierce. He wanted to go head-on with the Prajna palm. He was really overestimating himself. Mr. Liu, Mr. Crane, go and help them. Zhao Min had just seen the battle between Xiansheng and Song Qing-shu. It seemed to be nothing special. She did not expect that her subordinate would be defeated so miserably in a fight with Xiansheng. She complained in her heart. The two Xianming elders saw Xiansheng wounding the divine Arrow 8 heroes, killing a San, forcing Bakada, and heavily injuring Aer with just a wave of his hand. They couldn't help but feel somewhat terrified. But since their master had spoken, the two of them looked at each other and had no choice but to brace themselves and go forward. Learning from their previous mistakes, Xianming elders naturally did not dare to be as arrogant as before. They did not want to use the Xianming palm to defeat the opponent quickly. They both took out their own special weapons. The two of them were the world's top masters. They had been brothers for decades and were very good at joint attacks. In this way, Xiansheng could not do anything to them in a short time. The three of them quickly fought. The wind within a radius of several feet was like a knife. Xiansheng was barehanded, but he did not show any fear. On the contrary, Xianming elders' expression gradually became serious. Their figures also became somewhat obscure. I asked the imperial teacher to help us. Zhao Min saw that the Xianming elders were gradually falling into a disadvantageous position. Although their moves were going back and forth, she knew in her heart that the two were just struggling. She quickly looked at Jinluan Fuwang for help. Princess, this. Jinluan Fuwang showed hesitation. He was the dignified Mongolian imperial teacher. If he joined forces with others to fight the enemy, even if he won, he would lose face. What's more, with the skill shown by Xian Cheng, Jinluan Fuwang was not sure if he could win alone, so he fell into a dilemma. According to Jinluan Fuwang's original idea, although the Xianming elders could not defeat Xian Cheng, if Xian Cheng wanted to win against the two elders, he would have to pay a certain price. At that time, if he fought against the injured Xian Cheng, his chances of winning would greatly increase. In this way, he would be able to defeat the first person in the Shaolin Temple in 200 years. His reputation in the world would be unprecedented, and he could also faintly suppress the Nalanda Temple's Basiba. So why not? Imperial teacher, I know that you respect your identity, but our mission this time is very important. If anything happens, I'm afraid it will be hard to explain to the Great Khan. Princess Huazheng also persuaded. She only thought that Jinluan Fuwang was worried about his reputation, but she did not know that he had so many calculations in his heart. Even Princess Huazheng also spoke up. Jinluan Fuwang could no longer refuse, so he nodded his head and got up to say to Xian Cheng, "This old monk is the Mongolian imperial teacher, Jinluan Fuwang. Today, I came to meet you. Be careful." As soon as his voice fell, 3 wheels flew out of his hands and spun rapidly towards Xian Cheng. Although Jinluan Fuwang was good at scheming against others, he was after all a grandmaster. In a situation where there were many of them, he naturally would not sneak attack. So before he made a move, he first warned, "Imperial teacher, I'll leave this to you." Hearing the whizzing wheels, the Xianming elders temporarily forced Xian Cheng back and immediately jumped out of the battle circle. Seeing the two burn the bridge after crossing the river, Jinluan Fuwang couldn't help but curse in his heart. But the arrow was already knocked on the bow, so he could only continue to attack with a gloomy face. With the 2 wheels in his hands, he coordinated with the 3 wheels in the sky and continued to attack. The 5 wheels were of different weights and sizes. Jinluan Fuwang caught and threw them as he pleased. When the wheels came out, they were sometimes straight and sometimes crooked. The 5 wheels spun as if they were flying. Xian Cheng had never met such a strange weapon before. For a moment, he was forced into a fluster by the wheels that were attacking him from all directions. The scene of these 5 wheels flying together is quite similar to my Li sword technique. Song Qingshu watched for a while. Because he was not involved in the battle, he could vaguely feel the pattern of the 5 wheels flying. The Li sword technique was a sword technique that Song Qingshu had researched before. Using qi to control the sword, he could control the wooden sword to appear and disappear unpredictably within 3 feet of his body, attacking the enemy from all directions. Later on, he combined it with the 18 dragon subduing palms. Even the Western poison Ouyang Feng was forced into a difficult situation. But because of Ouyang Feng's reminder, Song Qingshu realized the weakness in his character. Song Qingshu was suddenly enlightened. When he successfully completed his plan, his entire martial arts realm had a qualitative improvement. Now, he was more inclined to simplify the complex. A wooden sword was enough. Imperial teacher is indeed the #1 fighter in Mongolia. One-on-one, he has the upper hand. Huazheng said happily as she looked at the situation. Zhao Min never lacked top fighters around her. So even though her martial arts were not that great, her knowledge was far greater than Huazheng's. She could see that Jinluan Fuwang had caught Xian Cheng off guard and had the upper hand. But Xian Cheng was like a small boat in a raging sea. Even though it looked dangerous, he was able to avoid danger every time. If Jinluan Fuwang could not quickly turn his advantage into a victory, things would not look good for Xian Cheng once he got used to it. "Mr. Liu, Mr. Crane, go and help the royal advisor." Zhao Min was a pragmatist. She did not care about the rules of the martial arts world. She followed the principle of taking advantage of someone's weakness on the Mongolian plains. Now that the Xianming elders and Jinlu Fuwang were working together, Xiansheng would not be able to escape. Your Highness, Imperial Teacher has the upper hand. If we get involved now, wouldn't we be looking down on Imperial Teacher? Lu Zhonke laughed dryly. They naturally knew what Jinlu Fuwang was planning. Now that the tables had turned, it was their turn to watch the fire from the other side. Zhao Min's pretty face turned cold. She was about to use her status as a princess to give them orders when there was a change in the situation. After dozens of rounds, Xiansheng already knew the power of the 5 flywheels. A confident smile appeared on his face, and he no longer dodged. He took a deep breath and activated the indestructible body of Diamond. The red and yellow monk's robe swelled up again. Bang, bang, bang. Following a few ear-piercing noises, the flywheels bounced off Xiansheng's body. Jinlu Fuwang turned pale with fright and quickly circulated his internal energy to gather the scattered flywheels in his hands. The 5 of them merged into one and stood in front of him to defend against Xiansheng's next attack. Xiansheng waved his hand, and the staff stuck in the wall flew into his hand. He said the name of Buddha to Jinlu Fuwang. Fuwang, you are the Mongolian Imperial Teacher. I don't dare to fight you with my bare hands. I will use the Staff of Exorcism to test your tantric techniques. Master's martial arts are so high that it is rarely seen. I was going to use the Dragon and Elephant Prajna Kung Fu to deal with Guijing. I hope Master can evaluate it. Jinlu Fuwang held the golden wheel in one hand and slowly waved the other. The light behind him slowly twisted and seemed to form the image of a dragon and elephant. Legend has it that every level of power is twice the power of the previous level. I wonder what level Fuwang is at. Xiansheng's expression became serious. I am not talented. I have only reached the 10th level. Jinlu Fuwang looked humble, but he could not hide the pride in his heart. When he saw that everyone in the inn had their attention on the 2 of them, Song Qingshu had an idea. He looked in the direction of Zhao Min and saw that under the sunlight, her face was flushed red and the skin on the back of her neck was as white as snow. Her figure was graceful, and her waist was so thin and soft that it looked like it had no bones. He couldn't help but secretly praise her. She really is the most beautiful woman in Mongolia. This is a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. Kidnapping her is as easy as flipping my hand. Chapter 314. Song Qingshu had this idea, not because of his past entanglements with Zhang Wuji, but because of his own considerations. If Zhao Min went to the southern Song dynasty for peace talks, then the Mongols would most likely attack the Jin or Manchurian Qing. If it was the Jin, then it would be fine, but if it was the Manchurian Qing, then all his previous plans would have to be restarted. After all, according to his previous plan, he would use the Golden Snake Battalion to grow stronger and slowly digest the strength of the Manchurian Qing. If the Mongols attacked now, even if Song Qingshu overthrew the Manchurian Qing, he would only be inviting a wolf into the house and bringing an even stronger enemy. This was something that Song Qingshu did not want to see. Hijacking the Mongolian diplomatic mission seemed to be the best deal. As long as the Mongols could not make peace with the southern Song dynasty, they would not be able to attack the Manchurian Qing. This would give Song Qingshu plenty of time. However, Song Qingshu did not make a move immediately. He wanted to observe the fight between Jinlu Fuwang and Xiansheng. Jinlu Fuwang was easy to deal with. After all, he could understand a thing or two from the original work. But as for Xiansheng, there were only a few words in the original work. His strength was a mystery. He had just seen Xiansheng use all kinds of Shaolin's 72 ultimate techniques. The others were easy to deal with. No matter how exquisite they were, there would always be a way to break them. But that diamond indestructible body was a bit of a headache. Once Xiansheng used his divine kung fu, he would be invulnerable to metal and stone, water and fire. Then how could he win? Song Qingshu patted his head. He thought of some of the martial arts movies in his previous life. There were many similar martial arts. Although this kind of martial arts was invulnerable, there was always a part of the body that could not be trained, and that was the so-called Achilles heel. This Achilles heel was extremely fragile. As long as it was hit accurately, it could completely break the opponent's defense. Where is this Achilles heel? Song Qing-shu held his wine cup and stared at the two people fighting. His eyes narrowed, and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. According to the rules in the movies, the Achilles heel was usually at a man's weakest point. But movies were, after all, fictitious. It was hard to predict whether it was reliable or not. What's more, it was said that Shaolin Temple had an iron blocking skill. If Xian Cheng also practiced it, wouldn't he only be able to watch? Zhao Min thoughtfully looked in the direction of Song Qing-shu. Looking at his calm and relaxed appearance, her heart was filled with curiosity. In the past, Song Qing-shu always gave her the impression of a golden jade on the outside, but a shabby embroidered pillow on the inside. Not long ago, his meridians were all broken, and he looked dispirited. What kind of fortuitous encounter made this man have such an earth-shattering change? Song Qing-shu turned his head thoughtfully and happened to meet Zhao Min's gaze. He couldn't help but smile and nod, which made Zhao Min quickly turn her head away. Her heart was filled with hatred. No matter how he changed, he still looked annoying. At this time, Jinlun Fuwang and Xian Cheng were fighting. Every time the golden wheel and the Buddha staff came into contact, there was a sound of friction that made people's teeth ache. At the same time, there was a series of dazzling sparks. Xian Cheng's exorcism staff technique was incomparably powerful. With a wave of the staff, a formless Gang Qi attacked from afar. Jinlun Fuwang was not at a disadvantage either. His right hand waved out, and with a crackling sound, Xian Cheng's formless Gang Qi dissipated. But the world's kung fu originated from Shaolin, and Xian Cheng was known as the Shaolin Temple's #1 expert in the last 200 years. His skills were unfathomable. Even though Jinlun Fuwang had the tantric sex, dragon elephant prajna, he still found it difficult to deal with Xian Cheng. He had no choice but to occasionally use the golden wheel in his left hand to block the Gang Qi. Seeing that after Xian Cheng wielded the Buddha staff, Jinlun Fuwang fell into a disadvantage. Zhao Min's eyebrows slightly wrinkled. She glanced at the two elders of Xianming. Seeing the gloating look on their faces, she thought for a moment and understood what the two were thinking. She understood that it was impossible for the two to join hands with Jinlun Fuwang at this time. Big Monk, no matter what grudges there are between me and the Shaolin Temple, my trip to the south this time is for the peace talks between Mongolia and the Southern Song dynasty. It is for the sake of saving hundreds of millions of lives. If it is because of you that the world is plunged into misery and suffering, Big Monk, aren't you afraid of going to Avicii hell after you pass away? Hearing Zhao Min's words, Xian Cheng's heart moved. As expected, he had scruples in his actions. He was obviously weighing the pros and cons. Jinlun Fuwang finally got a chance to breathe and finally slowly recovered. Seeing this situation, Song Qing-shu understood that it was no longer possible to watch the fire from the other side. His figure disappeared, and like an arrow, he rushed towards Zhao Min's direction. Although the two elders of Xianming watched Jinlun Fuwang fall into a bitter battle, they did not dare to ignore the safety of the two. Seeing Song Qing-shu rushing over, they quickly waved their weapons to meet him. The corner of Song Qing-shu's mouth hung a trace of sneer. It was unknown when, but there was already a wooden sword in his hand. He lightly waved it towards the two elders of Xianmei. The two only felt an incomparably sharp and irresistible sword qi faintly penetrating their bodies. Under great shock, they hurriedly dodged to the side. Seeing that Song Qing-shu had arrived in front of her in an instant, Zhao Min was slightly startled and raised her palm to attack. Who knew that her white wrist would be easily grabbed by Song Qing-shu's hand? Immediately after, she felt numbness in her waist. Song Qing-shu had already sealed her acupuncture point and twisted her arm behind her back. Lightly smelling the fragrance of the beauty in his arms, Song Qing-shu revealed a trace of an expression of appreciation. He said to the two people who were fighting fiercely in the field, "Big Monk, I'll leave here to you. I'll leave first." As soon as he finished speaking, Song Qing-shu hugged Zhao Min and jumped out of the window. After this big change, the two people who were fighting fiercely in the field had already stopped. Jinlun Fuang was both shocked and angry. From afar, he smashed the golden wheel in his hand towards Song Qingshu's back. Song Qingshu lightly laughed and waved his sword, sending the golden wheel whistling towards him back. Who knew that Xiancheng would also send a palm towards him from afar? Feeling the biting cold wind from the palm, Song Qingshu's eyebrows furrowed. With the tip of his foot, he kicked a copper wine jug towards the wind from the palm. The smooth and round copper jug seemed to have received a heavy blow and was quickly compressed into a thin layer of copper. Before Song Qingshu could react, Zhao Min had already let out a delicate groan. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth, and her delicate and beautiful face quickly became incomparably white. Song Qingshu's eyes focused. Holding onto Zhao Min's slender waist, he lightly tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and disappeared out of the window like a wisp of smoke. Just as Jinlun Fuang was about to chase after them, Xiancheng had already blocked his way. It's said that the fastest person in Wulin is treading on the sands without a trace. If you can catch up to me, then you won't be able to live up to your many years of fame. Let me down. As Song Qingshu was running at high speed, he suddenly heard a voice that was weak but determined. Estimating that he had completely shaken off his pursuers, Song Qingshu stopped and gently placed Zhao Min under a tree. I didn't expect Xiancheng to use the Great King Kong Palm, which is the best at transferring strength through objects. I'm really sorry for causing you to be seriously injured. Looking at the bloodless face in front of him, Song Qingshu said apologetically. Zhao Min slightly furrowed her eyebrows and pushed away Song Qingshu's hands that were supporting her. She struggled to sit up and slightly leaned against the tree. She weakly said, "Leave me here. When my subordinates catch up, they'll naturally be able to save me." Song Qingshu hesitated for a while and shook his head. "With that monk's skills, I'm afraid your subordinates won't have the ability to save you." "If they don't have the ability, then do you have the ability?" Zhao Min said in a bad mood. Even though she had seen that Song Qingshu's martial arts were not the same as before, she was still used to looking at Song Qingshu the same way she used to. "I can naturally save you, but it'll be a bit of a loss for me. You might not be willing," Song Qingshu said with a bitter smile. Zhao Min's martial arts were far inferior to his. If he used this method to save her, his power would probably be reduced by half. Zhao Min didn't care about Song Qingshu's method of saving her. Instead, she said with a sigh, "Ever since we parted on Mount Shaoshi, I didn't expect you to be able to learn such powerful martial arts." On Mount Shaoshi, the princess snuggled up to the side of the Ming Dynasty's Zhang Jiaozhu. What a happy and loving appearance. Isn't she back in Mongolia now and running around for the Ruyang prince? Song Qingshu also sat down on the grass and said with a faint smile. A hint of surprise appeared on Zhao Min's face. She carefully looked at Song Qingshu and said curiously, "At that time, when your meridians were all broken, I thought you were dead for sure. Who knew that not long after, you would rise to fame in the Manchurian Qing dynasty and quickly become the #1 expert in the Manchurian Qing imperial court? What kind of fortuitous encounter did you have to have such an earth-shattering change? 1 life, 2 luck, 3 feng shui. All of this can only mean that I'm not fated to die." Song Qingshu curled up one of his legs and put his hand on his knee. He said freely, "On the other hand, the princess, you are clearly seriously injured, but you have so many questions. Aren't you afraid of dying?" Zhao Min's pretty face blushed, and she snorted. "Didn't you just say that you have a way to save me? Why should I worry? How do you know that I will definitely save you?" Song Qingshu asked curiously. "It doesn't matter whether it's the grudge between you and Zhang Wuji, or my identity as the Mongolian Junju. I'm more valuable alive than dead." Zhao Min's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. She had barely finished speaking when she coughed up another mouthful of blood. "You're quite open-minded." Song Qingshu looked at her in surprise. His tone was full of admiration. "However, I'm very curious. What is going on between you and Zhang Wuji? According to what I know, didn't you elope with him?" Why did you run back to Mongolia? As if he had touched upon something sad. Zhao Min's already pale face became even paler. She said coldly, "It's none of your business." Song Qingshu did not get angry. Instead, he smiled. "I'm very curious about the reason why the quick-witted princess lost her composure." Zhao Min snorted coldly. Her face was as cold as frost, but she did not answer. "Could it be that on the night of your wedding, the princess found out that Zhang Wuji was actually Zhang Wuji?" Song Qingshu speculated with some evil interest. "Your Excellency is so shameless. No wonder your sect leader Zhou likes Brother Wuji more." Zhao Min looked at him disdainfully and said indifferently. Song Qingshu was no longer the same as before. He was not angered by Zhao Min's sharp and unkind words. Instead, he teased, "Since your brother Wuji likes my zhuo, why don't we get together and piss off those two people? What do you think?" Chapter 315. You. Zhao Min's eyes widened, and she couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. She gasped and said with hatred, "Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself?" "I did. I think I'm a little more handsome than Zhang Wuji," Song Qingshu said with a smile. Zhao Min snorted coldly and turned her head away. She let Song Qingshu tease her in every way. She pursed her lips and ignored him. Seeing that Zhao Min didn't respond, Song Qingshu felt bored and said, "Aren't you curious about how I can save you?" Hearing Song Qingshu's words, Zhao Min was still indifferent, but her trembling eyelashes showed that she wasn't as calm as she looked. "In fact, it's not difficult to save you, but it's not easy either. In the end, it's still very difficult." Song Qingshu sighed. "What are you talking about?" Zhao Min was amused by Song Qingshu's explanation and said impatiently, "Because if I want to save you in my way, I have to take off your clothes first." Song Qingshu didn't mention the Mankisvara Diana, but used ambiguous words to refer to Zhao Min. After all, he and Zhao Min were enemies, and Song Qingshu didn't want her to know too much about it. Otherwise, with her intelligence, she would have to bear the name of a pervert for the rest of her life. "Bah!" Zhao Min scolded angrily. "I'd rather die than let you save me." Song Qingshu shrugged helplessly as if he had expected it. "I told you that you wouldn't want to. Besides, it would take a lot of energy to save you. I'm not related to you at all. Even if you really take off your clothes and beg me to save you, I may not be willing to do it." Zhao Min was so angry that she laughed. "Will I take off my clothes and beg you? Nothing is absolute in this world. It's really hard to say." Song Qingshu said calmly as usual. "Dream on. Cough, cough." Zhao Min was so angry that she coughed violently. Her vision darkened, and she almost fell to the ground. Song Qingshu hurriedly supported her shoulders. Seeing that her usually white and rosy skin was frighteningly pale, he quickly pulled her hands up. He did not even have the time to savor the smooth touch as he continuously infused his innate qi into her body. In a daze, Zhao Min felt that her whole body was bathed in a warm atmosphere. She slowly woke up and found that she was half lying in Song Qingshu's arms. She hurriedly used her remaining strength to push him away. "Don't move. Xiancheng's skill is no small matter. I don't hesitate to use my true essence to prolong your life. Princess, you're a heroine of the prairie. Why are you acting like those frail girls of the Han people? Why do you care about some superfluous formalities?" Song Qingshu pressed Zhao Min's shoulder gently and said in a deep voice. Zhao Min's first reaction was that she would rather die than let him save her. However, she was not an ordinary woman after all. In addition, she had too many concerns in her heart. It would be a pity if she died suddenly. After weighing the pros and cons, she acquiesced to Song Qingshu's help. However, lying in his arms like this was absolutely out of the question. "You help me sit down against the tree? Oh, don't be like this." Zhao Min was seriously injured. Her voice was delicate and weak, with a trace of poignant temptation. Even a stone-hearted person would not be able to refuse. Song Qingshu did not want to take advantage of her. He firmly held her palm with one hand and continuously transferred his internal strength to her. With the other hand, He carefully helped her sit down against the tree trunk. Just like that, after the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Zhao Min gradually regained her spirit. She could feel the pure and gentle true qi that Song Qing-shu had transferred into her body. She couldn't help but look at him in surprise. I didn't expect your internal energy to be so strong. I'm afraid it's not inferior to Wuji's. She suddenly thought of something and frowned. She forcefully swallowed the word brother back down. No less than that of Zhang Wuji? Song Qing-shu smiled faintly and said, his 9-yang divine skill has been practiced to the advanced realm. His internal strength is endless. In terms of internal strength, I'm afraid few people in the world can beat him. However, 9-yang divine skill is a mortal martial art after all. It has its limit. Hearing this, Zhao Min could not help but pout and said angrily, you're talking as if you've learned immortal martial arts. Song Qing-shu moved his gaze away from Zhao Min's thin and moist lips without leaving a trace. He only shook his head and did not explain himself. Although no one had successfully practiced the joy dhyana of Tantra since ancient times, it was still possible to become an immortal. Although Song Qing-shu was more obsessed with the mortal world and had no interest in becoming an immortal, he subconsciously felt that the joy dhyana should be better than 9-yang divine skill. After all, after returning from Tufan, his cultivation speed of internal qi could be described as magical. How long are you going to hold my hand? Zhao Min was also a martial artist. Naturally, she knew that her internal injury had temporarily stabilized. Her little hand was being held by Song Qing-shu, which made her restless. You should thank your savior first. Although Song Qing-shu said so, he had already let go of Zhao Min's hand. As soon as she was free, Zhao Min quickly withdrew her hand as if she had been electrocuted. She hid behind her and secretly wiped it. Hearing Song Qing-shu's teasing words, she said indignantly, if you hadn't suddenly taken me hostage, I wouldn't have been so seriously injured. I didn't know that the monk Xiansheng would be so cruel and merciless as to destroy a flower. He even used the Buddha's Vajra fist, a hidden martial art that can hit a cow from a mountain. Song Qing-shu also felt very depressed. He had wanted to kidnap Zhao Min. On the one hand, he could temporarily destroy the Mongolian strategic plan of making friends from afar and attacking from afar. On the other hand, he could also get enough benefits from Prince Ruyang. But now he only had a half-dead princess. If something really happened to Zhao Min, he would not be able to explain himself. None of those stinky monks from Shaolin Temple are good people. Speaking of this, Zhao Min and Song Qing-shu agreed with each other for the first time. When the Mongolians unify the world in the future, I will definitely destroy Shaolin Temple. I know that your highness is very powerful, but don't be too happy too early, Song Qing-shu said in a deep voice. I'm only temporarily using my vital energy to keep you alive. You have to get treatment as soon as possible. Zhao Min's face turned red, and her chest rose and fell rapidly again. Don't mention that disgusting method of yours. Don't always look at me with such a disdainful gaze. Song Qing-shu stood up and patted the dirt off his body. If I really wanted to do something to you, I wouldn't have to go through all this trouble. With the difference in our martial arts, and the fact that we're a man and a woman, do you think you could stop me if I come and take off your clothes right now? Zhao Min was shocked. She gripped her collar tightly with both hands. If you dare to do that, I'll bite my tongue and commit suicide. Just wait for the endless pursuit of the Mongolians. Even in such a panic situation, her heart was like a mirror. She knew that the only thing that could make Song Qing-shu worry about right now was the power of the Mongolians. I'm just making an example. You don't have to be so agitated. You might get injured. Song Qing-shu raised his hands and slowly took a few steps back to show that he did not mean any harm. Seeing that Zhao Min had finally calmed down, Song Qing-shu could not help but want to play a prank. He smiled and said, actually, your highness, it won't affect you even if you bite your tongue and commit suicide. Haven't you heard of the saying, while the heat is hot? While the heat is hot. Zhao Min was stunned, but she was famous for being clever. She understood Song Qing-shu's meaning after thinking for a while. She was so angry that her body trembled. She pointed at Song Qing-shu and scolded, "How can you be so shameless? Your Highness, please don't misunderstand. I'm just trying to completely dispel the idea of suicide. If you still think that it's not enough, I have a lot of ways." Song Qing-shu paced back and forth as he said, "If your Highness really dares to commit suicide, I'll strip you naked and hang you in front of the Shaolin Temple's gate on Mount Song. After all, Xuanqing was the one who injured you, so the monks won't be wronged." TSK. When the people in Jianghu talk about this wonder, will they guess that your Highness was abandoned by an eminent monk of the Shaolin Temple and committed suicide because you couldn't get over it? While Song Qing-shu was talking excitedly, he inadvertently saw Zhao Min's tearful and somewhat frightened eyes. He suddenly felt that this scene was familiar and recalled that he had once scared Zhou Zhiruo like this. For a moment, he could not help but sigh and could not continue the rest of his words. Although Zhao Min was resourceful, she had never met a person like Song Qing-shu who did not play by common sense. The scene described by Song Qing-shu involuntarily appeared in her mind, and her pretty face became pale. She was really scared. Stop talking. I won't commit suicide. If I had been so cooperative, I wouldn't have said these disgusting words." At this time, Song Qing-shu felt a little embarrassed. Zhao Min's thin lips were tightly closed, and she looked as if she still had a lingering fear. She didn't want to talk to him. "Your injury is too serious. There are no more than 3 people in the world who can save you, and I'm one of them. Are you sure you don't want me to save you?" Song Qing-shu asked for the last time. Of course, he knew her choice. Humph. Zhao Min's face was cold. As expected, she refused without hesitation. "Tell me about the other 2. One of them is Reverend Yidong, one of the 5 masters of the Central Plains. His One-Yang finger specializes in treating internal injuries and can bring the dead back to life. But once he uses it, he can't use Kung Fu for several years, so he won't use it easily. Moreover, Reverend Yidong isn't Dolly. Even if he is willing to save you, he is far away." Song Qing-shu sighed. "That's not necessarily true." Zhao Min thought to herself. The Mongolian leaders once discussed an expedition to Dali from Guizhou, Hunan, and Hubei to surround Xiangyang City in the southern Song dynasty. As long as they used this plan cleverly, it wouldn't be difficult to lure Reverend Yidong to save them. Unfortunately, the problem now was that they were too far away. What about the other one? There are actually 4 of them. They are the 4 miraculous doctors in the world. Song Qing-shu remembered that his meridians were all broken, and he had pinned his last hope on them. Although they couldn't cure him, it shouldn't be a problem for them to cure Zhao Min's injury. If he remembered correctly, in the original novel, when Azu went to the Shaolin Temple to steal the I Ching Jing, she was also injured by the Buddha's King Kong palm. Qiao Feng took her to Dr. Shui, and soon Azu recovered. One of the 4 miraculous doctors in the world, Zhang Wuji, replaced Hu Qingyou. "You can go to him," Song Qing-shu said teasingly, but in his mind, he was guessing what had happened between the 2. Someone else. As expected, Zhao Min refused expressionlessly. Chapter 316. Tut. It seems that something really happened between you 2. Song Qing-shu looked at Zhao Min curiously, unable to hide the curiosity in his heart. "It's none of your business." Zhao Min coldly rolled her eyes. As the saying goes, there's still a long way to go. Song Qing-shu knew that he couldn't figure out the reason in a short time, so he continued, "Apart from Zhang Wuji, there are only 3 of the 4 great divine doctors left. Although I have a good relationship with the Poison Hand King of Medicine, he lives in Daunting Lake, which is too far away. Miracle Dr. Shui, the enemy of Yama from Songzhou, and Ping Yiji, the famous killer doctor from Kaifeng, are both in Hunan. Comparatively speaking, Kaifeng is closer to here," Song Qing-shu said as hesitation appeared on his face. "Both Songzhou and Kaifeng are under the influence of the Jin Kingdom." Zhao Min looked worried. "It doesn't matter. The Central Plains has been fighting for years, and the Revolutionary Army is everywhere. Whether it is the Jin Kingdom or the Qing Kingdom, they have limited control over these places. Otherwise, your delegation would not have swaggered into the territory of the Qing kingdom so easily. When the time comes, we just need to disguise ourselves. Song Qingshu thought for a while and realized that Zhao Min and her team went south through their ally Liao, which was why they bumped into him. As for why they did not enter the territory of Song from Xiangyang, Song Qingshu did not understand at the moment. Then why are you hesitating? Zhao Min looked at him in surprise. That's not what I'm hesitating about, Song Qingshu said, because I have something important to do, and you and I are not related. I'm considering whether to waste time and energy on you. You don't have to worry about whether I live or die. Zhao Min felt an inexplicable pain in her heart when she heard this. Just leave me here. When my subordinates find me, they will naturally save me. This is not the era when the South China tiger is extinct. If I leave you here, maybe before your men find you, the tigers and wolves have already found you. TSK. Although the princess is as beautiful as a flower, in the eyes of these animals, she may not be as beautiful as a tigress or a wolf. She is just a delicious meal with delicate skin and tender flesh. Song Qingshu said maliciously. Stop it. Zhao Min's complexion paled. She had always prided herself on her incomparable resourcefulness, so she always had a way to deal with even the most ferocious of people. However, in the face of a group of animals, no matter how glib her tongue was, it was useless. Even if your men can find you in time, your injuries can't withstand the bumpy journey. You can only ride slowly in the carriage with a thick mattress. Unfortunately, this place is still several hundred miles away from Feng City. I'm afraid that before you can send her to Feng City, she'll already be dead. Song Qingshu had a look of pity on his face. Zhao Min quickly realized the problem and asked doubtfully, if that's the case, how will you send me to Kaifeng as soon as possible? And your men, whether it is Jinlu Fuwang or the Xianming elders, are not good at Qinggong. My apologies. So you are a horse that can travel thousands of miles in a day. A smile appeared on Zhao Min's pale face. Thank you for the compliment. Song Qingshu accepted it calmly. He suddenly realized that Zhao Min's expression was strange. So you're calling me a beast. Thank you for the compliment. Song Qingshu calmly accepted it. Suddenly, he noticed that Zhao Min's expression was strange, and he came to his senses. So you're using this method to call me an animal. Isn't that so? Zhao Min sneered. Although I looked down on you before, I admired your infatuation with Miss Zhou. Who would have thought that not long after, you would have another beautiful woman by your side? Thinking of the intimate look between the two in the inn, Zhao Min knew that the two had already had sex. It's not like Zhiruo hasn't seen her before. She didn't say anything. Why are you so jealous? Song Qingshu laughed. Bah, shameless. Who will be jealous of you? Zhao Min sat there sulking with a straight face. All right, back to business. Song Qingshu stretched and looked at the sky. It's getting late. As for the question of whether or not to save you, I've already thought it through. The answer is no. Although it would not take much time to go to Kaifeng, it would still delay important business. Song Qingshu did not want all the meticulous planning to go to waste. As if to compliment Song Qingshu's words, a vague howl of a wolf came from the distant jungle. Zhao Min could not help but turn pale. She had a noble status and was also known as the #1 beauty in Mongolia. Since she was young, the number of men who tried to please her was so many that she was numb to it. Usually, she only felt annoyed. But when men really ignored her beauty and status and did not care about her that much, she felt a great sense of loss in her heart. However, Zhao Min was Zhao Min after all. She quickly recovered from the negative emotions and said, You used a good move to advance by retreating. Considering the potential value I can bring, I don't believe that you will really leave me to die. Song Qingshu looked at her in surprise. There was a hint of admiration in his tone. Princess is really smart, but I'm not joking. I really don't plan to save you. Unless, what conditions do you have? Just say it, Zhao Min said lightly. Unless Princess agrees to 3 conditions. Song Qingshu smiled. There was a mischievous look on his face. What 3 conditions? Zhao Min seemed to have thought of something and frowned slightly. I haven't thought about it yet. I will tell you when I think about it, Song Qingshu said. Song Qingshu, is it interesting to play with these old things? Zhao Min's expression showed that she had expected it. She could not help but show a hint of mockery on her face. I have always admired Princess's intelligence and wisdom. The things that Princess has played with in the past must have been very effective. As for whether it is vulgar or not, it is not within the scope of my consideration. Song Qingshu said frankly. Impossible, I will not agree to it. Zhao Min shook her head firmly. Princess, you have a distinguished background and an indescribably beautiful appearance. You are something that countless women yearn for even in their dreams. Princess, you are so young. Are you willing to die like this? Song Qingshu said patiently. I don't care about these things. What's there to be reluctant about? Zhao Min suddenly tilted her head and looked at Song Qingshu with a faint smile. You said so much. I'm afraid you're reluctant to part with them. Song Qingshu smiled faintly. Princess, you're overestimating yourself. There's so many beauties in the world. Over the years, I've seen many women who are as beautiful as you. What does it matter if there's one less princess? As Song Qingshu spoke, the figures of the women appeared in his mind. Zhou Zhuo, Huang Rong, Icy Snow, Mu Wanqing, Wang Yuan, Zhu Mengxi, Chen Yuanyuan, Aku, Dongfang Muxue, Ren Yingying, Su Quan, Yelu Nanxian. There were more than 10 of them. However, he knew very well that the attractiveness of a woman was not purely based on her appearance. It also depended on her status, personality, temperament, and so on. Once all these factors were combined, beauties of the same level and appearance would eventually be differentiated. But of course, Song Qingshu would not be so stupid as to say these things out loud. Zhao Min fell into his trap. No matter how smart she was still a woman. She was choked by Song Qingshu's words and felt extremely depressed. Song Qingshu did not continue to provoke her. Instead, he changed the topic and said with a smile, Princess, if you don't care about these things, I wonder if you care about your father and brothers, as well as the glory and safety of the Ruyang mansion. Nowadays, the Mongol kings are fighting for the throne, and the conflict between them is getting more and more intense. The Ruyang mansion can remain neutral and only need to be loyal to the Khan. But once Temujin passes away, where will you go? Zhao Min's expression changed. She had been worrying about what Song Qingshu had said for a long time. The Ruyang mansion seemed to be glorious, but in reality, it was full of danger. Oh, I almost forgot that Princess is an extraordinary woman who could abandon her family for love. Song Qingshu slapped his forehead as if he had suddenly realized something. Zhao Min saw this and felt that his expression was as detestable as it could get. Even if Princess doesn't care about these things, you should care about that person, right? Although I don't know what happened between you, I can be sure that you don't want to die just like that. Enough. Say no more. Zhao Min's full chest heaved up and down. She bit her lip and said, I can agree to some of your conditions, but 3 is definitely out of the question. At most, I can only agree to 1, and you can't force me to do that kind of thing. Zhao Min looked like she wanted to say something, but stopped. Her pale and weak face was flushed. What kind of thing? Song Qingshu asked, amused. It's that kind of strange thing. Zhao Min stomped her little boots in anger and shame. Don't worry, I don't have that kind of bad taste. Song Qingshu laughed involuntarily. In comparison, I'm more worried that you will go back on your word. Words don't mean anything. You have to leave behind something as a token. Seeing Song Qingshu's bright eyes looking at her up and down, Zhao Min hurriedly leaned to the side and said with some caution, What do you want? Want? Seeing that Zhao Min couldn't understand his cold joke, Song Qingshu didn't care. He reached out his hand and brushed Zhao Min's ear. When he took back his hand, there was an earring pendant lying quietly in his palm. I'll take this as a token. If you keep your promise in the future, I will return this thing to you intact. In fact, Song Qingshu felt that this thing was not important enough. He originally wanted her underwear. However, he knew that this request was too shocking. Zhao Min would definitely fall out with him. After hesitating for a moment, he gave up this erotic idea. Zhao Min only felt that her ear was cold. She subconsciously reached out to touch it, but her earlobe had long been empty. Seeing that her beloved earring had fallen into Song Qingshu's hands, she had a complicated expression for a moment. She didn't know why, but she felt that her ear gradually became hot. Humph, you said that I was a demon before. Then I'll show you what a demon I am. After my injury is healed, I'll immediately send someone to tear this stinking brat into pieces. Let's see if he still has a chance to make any requests. Zhao Min said hatefully in her heart. Hey, how are you going to send me to Kaifeng? Zhao Min suddenly discovered a key problem. Song Qingshu stretched out his hands and said with a smile, Of course I'll fly with you in my arms. Chapter 317. No. Zhao Min raised her eyebrows and firmly refused. It's separated by clothes. Song Qingshu said with a headache. Besides, it's not like I'm going to touch you. Seeing that Zhao Min was still sitting there in silence, Song Qingshu teased, I know what you're worried about. Don't worry. This matter is known only to you and me. I won't tell Zhang Wuji. Zhao Min was so angry that she laughed. Speechlessly, she looked up at him and said, Of course it's not because of this. Men and women are not allowed to touch. Song Qingshu asked. After a long time, Zhao Min let out an almost inaudible snort. Didn't I just carry you out of the inn? Anyway, it's not allowed to touch. Why are you still so conflicted? Song Qingshu didn't care about Zhao Min's protest. He put one hand behind her neck and the other under her legs and carried her horizontally. Surrounded by the masculine scent, Zhao Min only felt that all the hairs on her body stood up. She struggled with all her might, but it was to no avail. Instead, the contact and friction with Song Qingshu's body made her blush, and she quickly calmed down. Song Qingshu only felt that the beauty in his arms was soft, as if there were no bones. He couldn't help but wonder, Princess was born in the grasslands, and your body is graceful and graceful. I didn't expect your body to be as light as the women of Jiangnan. Have you hugged many women of Jiangnan? As soon as he said this, Zhao Min secretly regretted it. This kind of conversation was too much like that between lovers. No matter how thick-skinned Song Qingshu was, he couldn't brag about his relationship with other women in front of a woman. He could only smile awkwardly. The two fell into silence. Zhao Min inadvertently saw that Song Qingshu's toes touched the ground, and the two of them moved dozens of feet. She couldn't help but turn pale and said, You're Qinggong. Why, it's not bad, right? Song Qingshu looked down at her and smiled, revealing a row of snow-white teeth. Zhao Min evaded his gaze with a rather complicated expression. She muttered, It's more than not bad. I have seen a lot of martial art masters. In terms of Qinggong, the most brilliant are the green-winged Bat King Wei Yixiao and Zhang Wuji. Although Wei Yixiao's speed is fast enough, his lack of internal energy has doomed him to be unable to last long. Zhang's Qinggong is also very good, but his advantage lies in the endless internal energy provided by the Jiuyang Shengong. Not only is you fast, but your breathing is long and your internal energy is strong. Zhang's Qinggong is also very good. Yes, but after Zhao Min finished speaking, she sighed with emotion in her heart. As the saying goes, a scholar who has been away for 3 days should be looked at with new eyes. Song Qingshu had perfectly illustrated this saying. To be able to beat Zhang Wuji once in the princess's mouth, my hard work in the past has not been in vain. Song Qingshu had a proud expression. He thought that in the past, he was an existence that could talk and laugh with Dongfang Bubi, a master of Qinggong. How hard could it be to shock a little girl? Zhao Min's expression darkened. She was not in the mood to reply. Coupled with her weak body after being seriously injured, she quickly fell into a deep sleep. Night gradually fell. Feeling the sleeping Zhao Min's body tremble in his arms, Song Qingshu quickly realized that he ran too fast and was hit by the cold wind. He quickly transferred a stream of internal energy into Zhao Min's body. In a daze, she felt a warm current enter her body. Zhao Min felt so comfortable that she let out a sweet moan. When Zhao Min woke up and realized that she was sleeping next to a fire, her first reaction was to lower her head and check her clothes. She only breathed a sigh of relief when she confirmed that they were intact. Looking at Song Qingshu's coat on the ground, Zhao Min was stunned. She did not expect him to be so considerate. You don't have to be touched. If you were to die from the cold, no one would be able to fulfill the conditions you promised me. Wouldn't I have suffered a great loss? Sitting nearby, Song Qingshu had his eyes closed, but he could sense everything. You think too highly of yourself. Zhao Min snorted, but she didn't say anything else. She used her hands to support herself and struggled to sit up, but she accidentally affected the injury on her back. She frowned and couldn't help but let out a groan. How are you? Song Qingshu opened his eyes and was about to get up to take a look. But he immediately realized that she might not appreciate his kindness, so he did not get up. Where are we now? Zhao Min looked around. The two of them were in a forest. It was pitch black everywhere. Thinking that they were alone, she subconsciously felt a little scared. We are only 20 to 30 li away from Feng City. I saw that it was late and the city gates were probably closed. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, we did not continue on our way, Song Qingshu said. Zhao Min clutched her chest and looked at him in confusion. A mere city wall can stop you? Of course I have no problem, but I'm afraid that your injuries will not be able to withstand the ups and downs, Song Qingshu explained after a moment of hesitation. Zhao Min's lips parted slightly, but she did not say anything in the end. However, she still felt a warmth in her heart. We'll enter the city at dawn tomorrow, but your appearance is a problem. Even a fool can tell that you're a woman disguised as a man, and you're so handsome. I'm worried that the soldiers guarding the gate will have evil thoughts about you, Song Qingshu said with a hint of schadenfreude. If anyone dares to be rude to me, you will help me kill him. Zhao Min's pretty face turned cold. She did not care about the lives of these ordinary people at all. Song Qingshu shook his head. I will not kill unless it is necessary. Then what did Wudong's Mo Qixia say? Zhao Min said sarcastically. She hated Song Qingshu so much because Song Qingshu had killed Mo Xinggu, causing her and Zhang Wuji to be misunderstood by Song Yuanxiao and the others. Song Qingshu was silent for a while before he said, It's precisely because I committed a grave mistake in the past that I reflected on the painful experience and swore not to casually kill people. Can't you see that the sword I use is a wooden sword? Hearing his words, Zhao Min's bad impression of him disappeared by a large margin. Instead, a trace of admiration rose in her heart. It's the greatest virtue to know one's mistakes and correct them. I'm very curious now. What kind of encounter could make you undergo nirvana rebirth and be reborn as if you become a completely different person? When all the meridians in your body are broken, all the loved ones in the world have left you, and there is no hope for the future, it is difficult for you to not change. Thinking of the despair on Mount Shaoshi when he had just transmigrated to this world, Song Qingshu's voice was incomparably cold. Although Song Qingshu did not go into details, Zhao Min could still imagine the hardships he had encountered in Jianghu. She could not help but sigh. It is a pity that Brother Wuji could not save you. Otherwise, you would not have to suffer so much later. Zhang Wuji, Song Qingshu sneered. I know you have always hated him because of what happened to Zhou Zhiruo, but at that time, he did not care about the grudge between the two of you and still wanted to save you. It is fine that you are not grateful to him, but why are you still angry at him? Feeling Song Qingshu's strong hostility, although Zhao Min and Zhang Wuji had temporarily fallen out, she was still somewhat unhappy. He saved you? Song Qingshu snorted, but he did not want to speak ill of Zhang Wuji in front of Zhao Min, so he did not tell her the truth. I really do not want to say more about the rights and wrongs. I believe that the truth will come to light one day. Zhao Min still wanted to say something, but she suddenly remembered something and suddenly became silent. She was originally an extremely intelligent person, and it did not take long for her to feel upset. When she touched upon some key issues, she subconsciously shifted her attention and did not want to think about it further. Thinking of the wooden sword Song Qingshu mentioned just now, She recalled the magnificence of Song Qingshu's sword in the inn. She could not help but look at him curiously. Can your wooden sword really hurt people? Whether or not it can hurt the enemy depends on the person holding the sword, not the sword itself. Song Qingshu said lightly. Can I see your wooden sword? Zhao Min could not hide the curiosity in her heart and asked softly. Then can I see your dudu? Song Qingshu asked back. You. Zhao Min's face suddenly turned red, and her almond-shaped eyes widened. She glared at Song Qingshu. What do you mean? Nothing. It's just that in Jianghu, the unique weapon is related to one's life. How can it be easily shown to others? It is just like the doo-doo of you girls, which is usually not shown to others. Song Qingshu explained. You are twisting words and forcing logic. Zhao Min snorted in annoyance. I'm afraid you hired a blacksmith to forge a sword, and then painted a layer of wooden paint on the door. Then, you announced to the public that you were using a wooden sword. How shameless of you! Even though Zhao Min's cheeks were pale due to her serious injury, she still had a lively expression on her face. Under the illumination of the firelight, she appeared incomparably tender and beautiful. Song Qingshu sighed and said, Junju only wanted to see my sword. Why did you deliberately provoke me? As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand. A wooden sword flew out of his sleeve and accurately stuck in the ground in front of Zhao Min. Zhao Min secretly praised his exquisite control of strength. She hastily stretched out her hand and cautiously touched the edge of the wooden sword. Under the reflection of the firelight, her slender fingers looked as if they were snow white and translucent, as if they were transparent. Seeing Zhao Min's delicate and naive look as if she was facing a formidable enemy, Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. Don't worry, I said it is a wooden sword. Even if you take it and cut your neck, it won't cut a layer of skin. Zhao Min's face turned red. She grabbed the wooden sword and said, I am not that stupid. Her fingertips gently touched the sword, and a trace of surprise appeared on her face. It really is a wooden sword. Song Qingshu spread his hands. Now you believe me. Give it back to me. No. Zhao Min subconsciously put the wooden sword behind her back and wrinkled her nose. Tell me first, how can an ordinary wooden sword hurt people? Zhao Min could not hide the longing in her voice. She had grown up among experts, so she had seen all kinds of martial arts. But Song Qingshu's wooden sword was like a breath of fresh air to her. When you plan to massacre the Wutang Mountain, it's not like you haven't seen Zhang Wuji use a wooden sword. Song Qingshu was speechless. He is just taking advantage of the deep internal energy of the Nine Yang divine skill. In my opinion, Zhang Sanfeng's Taiji sword is only SOSO. Zhao Min had just finished cursing when she suddenly remembered that the person in front of her was also a member of the Wutang sect. She couldn't help but stick out her tongue guiltily. It doesn't matter. I have been expelled from Wutang anyway. Seeing her suddenly revealing a delicate expression, Song Qingshu smiled knowingly. Why don't you tell me why you think the Taiji sword is only SOSO? Zhao Min was about to speak when she suddenly noticed that Song Qingshu's expression changed. He was staring at the road, not far away. He said in a deep voice, There are people coming in this direction, and there are a lot of them. Chapter 3:18. Zhao Min's face was filled with joy. She thought that her subordinates had chased them all the way here, but she quickly realized that after witnessing Song Qingshu's unpredictable qigong, Jinlun Fuang and the others would not be able to catch up so quickly. Even though she knew that it was not possible, she still held on to that hope. Zhao Min became anxious and looked nervously at the direction they came from. Not long after, Zhao Min's face showed a hint of disappointment. A luxurious carriage appeared in front of her, with more than 10 knights guarding it. Their eyes were bright, and their faces were ferocious. One look, and one could tell that they were masters. Stop! Who's there? The person at the front pulled the reins and stopped, looking at the two of them warily. Zhao Min's expression suddenly changed. She realized that these people were all dressed in the Jin Kingdom's attire. The hatred between the Jin Kingdom and the Mongols was as deep as the ocean. If they found out who she was, the consequences would be terrible. If that was the case, she might as well continue to be in Song Qingshu's hands. With this thought in mind, Zhao Min found that Song Qingshu, whom she had always hated, was much more pleasing to the eye. What happened? Before Song Qingshu could answer, a lazy and sweet female voice came from the carriage. It had a faint charm that could move one's soul. It turned out that the noble in the carriage was curious as to why they had stopped and asked. Song Qingshu was startled. There was actually such a seductive voice in this world. Without seeing the person, just hearing the voice, he could tell that the woman in the carriage was a stunning beauty. The moment this woman opens her mouth, she's definitely not a decent woman. Zhao Min had already quietly moved to Song Qingshu's side, as if this was the only way to give her a sense of security. She just happened to notice Song Qingshu's expression and couldn't help but blush. Men really are bad. It seems that beautiful women are naturally hostile to other beautiful women. Song Qingshu laughed. Hearing him praise her beauty, Zhao Min's heart was very happy, and she couldn't help but snort coldly. You haven't seen her face. How do you know she is beautiful? However, even she knew how uncertain her tone was. How could a woman with such a voice not be beautiful? Master, there are two young men in the middle of the road. The leading knight rode to the side of the carriage and said respectfully, replying to Madam's question, I originally brought my younger brother into Kaifeng City to find a doctor, but who knew that it was already late and the city gates were closed. I had no choice but to rest here for the night. I didn't mean to block your way. I hope Madam can forgive me. Song Qingshu could tell that the person in the carriage should be a very powerful figure of the Jin Kingdom. Now, that it was more important to cure Zhao Min as soon as possible, he did not want to cause trouble, so he spoke in a very polite tone. You haven't even seen my face. How do you know that I'm a madam and not a young miss? A chuckle came from the carriage. Song Qingshu was speechless for a moment, thinking that he could not tell her what he really thought. If there was a girl in the boudoir who was as flirtatious as her parents would be very angry. Madam, when you speak, you have a graceful and luxurious aura. That kind of calmness is not something that an ordinary young miss can have, so my brother dared to make a bold guess. Seeing that Song Qingshu was hesitating, Zhao Min quickly said. She had not recovered from her serious injury, so her tone was very weak, but her voice was clear and sweet, making people feel very comfortable. Oh! A white and delicate hand lifted a corner of the carriage curtain, and the person in the carriage seemed to be quietly looking at the two people. Sir, your younger brother is very seriously injured. If you wait until the city gates open tomorrow to find a doctor, it may delay the treatment. Come to the carriage, I will take you into the city. Song Qingshu was stunned. In this world, there was no reason for a woman to take the initiative to invite two strange men to ride in the same carriage. Seeing that the guard around him were not surprised, he felt even more strange and said embarrassedly, I'm afraid it's not very convenient. A trace of slyness flashed in Zhao Min's eyes. She pulled Song Qingshu's arm and walked to the carriage. Brother, it's rare for this madam to be so kind. You don't have to refuse so much. Zhao Min's coquettish brother almost made Song Qingshu's body melt. Moreover, he was skilled and bold, so he was quite curious about the appearance of the woman in the carriage. He smiled bitterly and cupped his hands to the carriage, saying, Thank you, madam. Then I will have to trouble you. Wait. When the two walked to the carriage, the leader stopped them and said, For the master's safety, please let us search you. Zhao Min secretly complained. She wanted to take the opportunity to find out who was in the carriage, but she did not expect to go for wool and come home shorn, putting herself in an awkward situation. As soon as he saw Zhao Min's expression, Song Qingshu knew what she was thinking. He took pleasure in her misfortune and said, All right, let's start with me. After saying that, he raised his hands, looking as if he didn't care at all. Zhao Min stared at him fiercely, thinking that if someone really came to search her, she would drag the culprit down with her, even if she had to risk her life. Seeing that Song Qingshu was so cooperative, the knight was also very surprised. He hurriedly signaled his subordinate, and the other soldier nodded and jumped off his horse. He walked up to Song Qingshu and carefully searched his body. "Commander, we found a wooden sword." The soldier held the wooden sword in front of the knight. Looking at the thin wooden sword in front of him, the knight laughed and looked at Song Qingshu with disdain. "You call this a sword? Country bumpkin, I polished it to play with children when I was bored." Song Qingshu was not angry and said calmly. The knight frowned and raised his hand to throw the wooden sword back. He signaled his subordinate and said, "Go search his brother." Song Qingshu had just put the wooden sword back into his sleeve when he saw Zhao Min's excited expression. He hastily embraced her shoulder and giggled as he looked at the knight. "Darren," he said, "my younger brother is seriously injured. I'm afraid he won't be able to withstand officer's strength. How about this? I will search him for you. Your eyes are like torches and will definitely be able to see the smallest detail." After saying that, he did not wait for the others to refuse and quickly patted Zhao Min's body with his hands. Feeling Song Qingshu's palms roaming all over her body and brushing past some sensitive spots from time to time, Zhao Min's face flushed red. Fortunately, Song Qingshu did not deliberately linger on certain parts of her body. Zhao Min forced a smile and suppressed her urge to kill. "See, there is nothing, right?" Song Qingshu imitated the soldier's method and patted Zhao Min's body all over. When there were no traces of hard objects, the knight nodded and waved his hand to allow them to enter the carriage. Song Qingshu carefully helped Zhao Min into the carriage. When he lifted the curtain, Zhao Min's small hands unconsciously wrapped around his waist and pinched a piece of thin flesh. She gritted her teeth and whispered, "You are really a bastard." Song Qingshu's face was as usual and whispered in her ear, "Thank you for the compliment." After entering the carriage, they smelled a sweet fragrance. It was not good for the two to secretly play around. They were both serious and were about to greet the owner of this place. When they saw the scene in front of them, they could not help but be stunned on the spot. The carriage was luxuriously decorated, and the interior was extremely spacious. The four walls were covered with soft cushions. A beautiful woman dressed in a palace dress was lying on her side. Her body was covered with a layer of translucent gauze, which could not hide her plump and graceful curves. Her pink face was full of lust. She looked at the two with a faint smile and said in a lazy voice, "What a pair of handsome brothers." Zhao Min only felt that the other party's peach blossom eyes could steal her soul. She frowned slightly and subconsciously disliked this woman. However, Song Qingshu's eyes lit up and he praised, "A peach blossom face cannot hide tears, and long willow leaf eyebrows make one feel sad. I did not expect there to be such a graceful person like Madame among the Jin people." The beautiful woman in the palace dress slightly pursed her lips, and her eyes were full of smiles. "You have a sweet mouth. From what you said, you are not from the Jin people." Zhao Min's heart almost jumped to her throat. She was afraid that Song Qingshu would be charmed by this vixen and carelessly reveal his identity as a Mongolian. She quickly secretly pinched his thigh. However, the genuine qi in Song Qingshu's body automatically rebounded, and it made her fingers faintly hurt. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and said, "Several countries have been at war for years, and the various places have changed hands. I also do not know which country I belong to." The beautiful woman in the palace dress obviously only asked casually and did not dare to be interested in this. She softly said, "Won't the two of you first introduce yourselves?" Song Qingshu bowed and said, "We have been rude. Our surnames are Song. I am Sunset, and he is Autumn Grass. We are from the Song Prefecture. Autumn grass grows on the road every year, and the sun sets in the house. Your names are quite unique." The beautiful woman in the palace dress slightly frowned. "Unfortunately, your surnames are not good." The Jin and Song kingdoms were enemies. When she heard the word Song, she naturally subconsciously felt displeased. Song Qingshu looked at her in surprise. He didn't expect that a Jin Ren like her would be so familiar with Han poetry. These two pseudonyms were just something he casually came up with the intention of teasing Zhao Min. He didn't expect that she would be able to see through him. "To be honest, madam, I also hate the surname Song." Seeing that Song Qing-shu had been defeated, Zhao Min secretly laughed. I wonder if Madam can tell me your name? She was more curious about this woman's identity. She hoped to take this opportunity to understand more about the Jin Kingdom and plan for the future. Young master, it's rare for you Han people to be so daring. Aren't you Han girls supposed to only tell your future husbands about your beautiful names? The beautiful woman in the palace dress saw that Zhao Min was handsome and charming and already had a good impression of him. Although she said this, her tone did not have a reproachful tone. Instead, there was a hint of provocation. Seeing that the beautiful woman in the palace dress seemed to have taken a liking to Zhao Min, Song Qing-shu was stunned. No way. She can't even tell when she is disguised as a man? Naturally, Song Qing-shu did not know that the beautiful woman in the palace dress was a noble person of the Jin Kingdom. Normally, he would not see the tricks of Jianghu. In addition, Song Qing-shu had previously taken off one of Zhao Min's earrings, so Zhao Min simply took off the other one. In this way, other than being too handsome and snow white, there were no obvious flaws on her body. It was not surprising that the beautiful woman could not see through her disguise. This coquettish fox. Zhao Min cursed in her heart, but she forced a smile on her face. Zaixia has never seen a woman as beautiful as Madam. That's why I momentarily forgot myself and blurted out the desire in my heart. I hope Madam can forgive me. My name is not as beautiful as yours. Don't mention it. You can call me Madam Tang. Hearing Zhao Min's praise, the beautiful woman in the palace dress looked happy. She patted the cushion beside her and asked Zhao Min to sit beside her. You are such a romantic and handsome person. Who could be so cruel to hurt you? Chapter 319. When it comes to being romantic and handsome, how can I compare with you? Zhao Min hesitated for a moment and finally sat down next to her. But as soon as she sat down, she moved her buttocks to the side without a trace. She was wondering if there was a high-ranking official with the surname Tang in the Jin Kingdom. The Jin Kingdom was originally a country established by nomads, and there were few Han Chinese in the noble class. Zhao Min thought about it and couldn't think of any person with the surname Tang. Ahem, it was too exhausting. Zhao Min accidentally affected her injury and couldn't help coughing a few times. Gongzi is injured. Lie down quickly, Mrs. Tang said with concern. Lie down. Zhao Min looked around. There was no place to lie down. Seeing that Mrs. Tang meant for her to lie on her thighs, she couldn't help but feel a chill. She quickly changed the topic and said, Madam, now that the gate is closed, will it be inconvenient to take us into the city? What's inconvenient about it? Mrs. Tang smiled. Not to mention 2 people. Even if there are 200 people, it won't be difficult. Song Qing-shu secretly clicked his tongue. Now that the heroes were rising, all the cities were extremely heavily guarded for fear of spies sneaking into the city. But this woman could easily take hundreds of people into the city. It was too exaggerated. If the enemy controlled this woman, wouldn't Kaifeng City be easy to get? It was just that he didn't know who she was and why she had such great power. While Song Qing-shu and Zhao Min were pondering, a string of silver bell-like laughter rang in their ears. Mrs. Tang looked at Zhao Min and said, I helped you so much this time. How are you going to thank me? Zhao Min and Song Qing-shu looked at each other. What did she mean? Before the 2 of them could respond, Mrs. Tang had already slowly sat up and lazily stretched out her arms. At that moment, her towering breasts and slender waist were unreservedly displayed in front of the 2 of them. After a long journey, I feel sore all over. It'd be good if someone could massage me. It's a pity that I didn't bring a considerate maid with me this time, and those people outside are rough. Although he didn't say it clearly, the meaning behind his words couldn't be any clearer. Zhao Min and Song Qing-shu looked at each other. As if they were telepathically connected, one's eyes flashed with the word slut, while the other's eyes flashed with the word slut. When Mrs. Tang invited the 2 men to ride in the carriage, Song Qing-shu thought it was a little strange, but he just thought that the people of the grassland were open-minded and didn't have many plans. He didn't expect this result. Big brother, I'm heavily injured and weak. I'll have to trouble you to massage Madam. Zhao Min looked at Song Qingshu with a pair of innocent big eyes. She earnestly looked at Song Qingshu. She thought that although this was a little too easy for the other party, she would never do it if he asked her to massage this madam's back. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and said to Mrs. Tang, "If you don't mind my clumsiness, please allow me to massage you." "How can I do that? You're my guests." Although Mrs. Tang said this, she had no intention of refusing. She even deliberately turned her body to make it easier for Song Qingshu to walk behind her. Although Song Qingshu didn't refuse this kind of erotic task, it was another thing to be forced by another woman. When he sat down behind Mrs. Tang, he couldn't help but glare at Zhao Min. Zhao Min wrinkled her nose, her face glowing. When Song Qingshu's hands kneaded Mrs. Tang's shoulders, Mrs. Tang let out an extremely comfortable nasal sound. Feeling the other's soft and boneless body, Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. Those who practiced martial arts were familiar with every acupuncture point in the human body. Coupled with the jinshi that was attached to Song Qingshu's fingertips, Mrs. Tang closed her eyes shortly after it started. Her expression was happy and sweet, and her throat would let out a burst of sweet gasps from time to time. Fortunately, Song Qingshu was not the same as before, otherwise he really wouldn't have been able to control himself. On the other hand, Zhao Min lowered her head with a flushed face and tightly clamped her legs together. Sometimes she moved a few times unnaturally. Her expression alternated between confusion and pain. "Prince Song, am I beautiful?" Mrs. Tang suddenly opened a pair of peach blossom eyes that seemed to be covered with a thin layer of mist. She quietly looked at Zhao Min. "Beautiful." Zhao Min murmured sleepily in response. At the same time, Song Qingshu found a pair of white and smooth hands gently placed on his own, slowly moving him into her clothes. "Is there such a good thing?" Song Qingshu's eyes widened as he noticed Zhao Min's abnormality. He couldn't help but frown. Suddenly, he saw the incense burner in the corner and remembered that when he first entered the carriage, he smelled a sweet fragrance. Could it be that there was something wrong with the incense? As for why it didn't work on him, it was probably because he practiced the mandala. The fragrance emitted when he operated the mandala, genuine qi, was the most fatal temptation in the world. How could ordinary medicine in the world affect him? Just as he was hesitating whether to take his hand back, his expression suddenly changed. He pressed Mrs. Tang to the ground and used the green dragon's absorption of water to suck Zhao Min into his arms. Zhao Min suddenly woke up. Just as she was about to get angry, a sharp sound came through the air. As a Mongolian princess, Zhao Min naturally knew that this was the sound of the most powerful armor-piercing arrow in the army. It destroyed everything in its path. Before she had time to shout, "Be careful," dozens of sharp arrows had been shot in from outside the curtain. Song Qingshu's expression was solemn. He had already grasped the wooden sword in his hand. With a flick of his wrist, the wooden sword began to spin rapidly. Like a fan, it blocked all the arrows that shot at him. At the same time, there were bursts of screams outside the carriage. Obviously, Mrs. Tang's guards had suffered heavy losses. "Who are you? How dare you attack the convoy of the Chong, military governor's wife?" Soon came the angry and shocked voice of the leader of the knights. "I want to kill this bitch." The response was a sneer. Hearing the conversation outside, the two finally understood the identity of Mrs. Tang. However, Zhao Min was very puzzled. Although the Chongyi military governor was a powerful military town in the Jin kingdom, it seemed that was not worthy of the kind of power that Mrs. Tang had shown just now. "Master, how are you?" The leader of the knights gathered the remaining guards around the carriage. Because they had to guard against the surrounding enemies, they did not dare to look back at the situation in the carriage. However, he had seen with his own eyes that more than a dozen armor-piercing arrows had been shot into the carriage. Now, the three people inside had probably been shot in a hedgehog's. "I'm fine." Mrs. Tang's weak voice came out. Obviously, she still had a lingering fear. Song Qingshu knew that staying in the carriage was just waiting for death. It was better to go out. With more space, it would be more convenient for him to fight or escape. So he helped the two women out. When looking at the dense circle of black-clothed people outside, Song Qingshu secretly complained. He wanted to hitch a ride, but he did not expect that the fire at the city gate would bring disaster to the fish in the moat. If I say that we just met this lady by chance and don't know her, will you let us go? As soon as Song Qingshu said this, even Zhao Min blushed. She had just received the hospitality of others, but now they were in danger. It was too unkind. Sure enough, the leader of the knights showed a contemptuous expression. Bah, the gigolo is really shameless. Hearing Song Qingshu's words, Mrs. Tang felt weak all over and almost fainted. However, she had just witnessed Song Qingshu's magical martial arts. She knew that whether she could escape today or not, she could only rely on the man in front of her. Prince Song, as long as you can save me within the territory of the Jin Kingdom, I can meet any conditions you ask for. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito, almost inaudible. Seeing Mrs. Tang's bashful look, Song Qingshu secretly cursed her. Just now, you clearly looked like you could do whatever you wanted, but now I have to risk my life to save you so I can get intimate with you. Do you think I'm stupid? Zhao Min's focus was completely different from Song Qingshu's. Song Qingshu thought that Mrs. Tang was using her body as a condition, but Zhao Min noticed that Mrs. Tang said, within the territory of the Jin Kingdom, any conditions. She couldn't help but be surprised. She was only the wife of a military governor. How could she be so arrogant? Prince Song. Suddenly, there was a slight sound of surprise from the crowd in black. A slim woman in green with a veil and a bamboo hat on her head came out of the crowd and said in a clear and angry voice, I hate people with the surname Song the most. Kill him. Zhao Min glared at Song Qingshu and thought, what a loser. Why do the two women I met tonight hate people with the surname Song? It's you. When the woman in green saw Song Qingshu's appearance, she couldn't help but be shocked and angry. You really have a lot of romantic debts. Zhao Min, who was at the side, was very happy when she saw this. She didn't care that she was also in danger and said gloatingly, Has Song Mao ever offended you? Song Qingshu was also baffled. The veil on this woman's bamboo hat covered her face, but looking at her lithe, delicate appearance, she must be an extremely beautiful woman. Could it be that I've been unlucky these days? Song Qingshu cursed. In the past 2 days, first it was Zhao Min, then it was Mrs. Tang, and now it was this woman. What the hell? Slow down. I can't digest it in such a short time. It's more than that. If I don't tear you into pieces today, it'll be hard to repay the crime of being frivolous and humiliated that day. Speaking of frivolous and humiliated, the woman in green couldn't help but blush when she thought of the scene that day. She was angry and ashamed, but this anger only lasted for a moment. She slightly focused, and her face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. She waved her hand, and a group of black-robed people rushed out from behind her, holding a black bamboo tube aimed at the people in the carriage. Is it a gun? Looking at the row of bamboo tubes in front of him, Song Qingshu suddenly felt a little out of character. This bamboo tube is filled with poisonous water that will corrode anything it touches. Just a drop of it will make your body rot to the bones. No matter how high your martial arts are, you won't be able to escape today. The woman in green coldly snorted. If you are willing to cut off your arms and dig out your eyes, I may consider letting you go. Although Zhao Min was also a cruel and merciless person, when she heard the woman's words, her whole body was cold. She quietly said to Song Qingshu, What did you do to her to make her hate you so much? How would I know? Song Qingshu bitterly smiled, cupped his fists, and said to the woman in green, Miss, I don't even know who you are. You have to let me die knowing. Chapter 320. Thinking of the embarrassing scene that day, the green-clothed woman thought how could she say this in public? Just as she was hesitating whether or not to have her subordinates shoot the poison, a laughing voice came from behind her. What kind of man can make little sister so angry? Big sister wants to see. A tall and beautiful woman walked out from the crowd. However, what left the deepest impression was not her appearance, but the pear blossom spear on her back that was even longer than her body. She exuded a heroic spirit from head to toe. The beautiful woman looked up and down at Song Qing-shu, and her eyes brightened. What an imposing man! She knew that with the green-clothed woman's status in Jianghu, an ordinary man who offended her would not be able to live until now. This man was so handsome, and the green-clothed woman's face was flushed. She thought that perhaps they were a couple quarreling, so she didn't kill him. However, the green-clothed woman was famous for being thin-skinned. She had already said that she wanted to kill a man, so there was no reason for her to take it back. If she really let her subordinates shoot the poison, even if this man didn't die, he would be crippled. It would be better to capture the man alive and hand him over to her, secretly doing her a favor. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. The beautiful woman understood everything and smiled to the green-clothed woman. He offended our young Miss Run, so it would be too easy to kill him. Let big sister capture him, and little sister, you can torture him. Her words were beautiful, not only giving the green-clothed woman face, but also giving her a way out, so she didn't have to worry about the green-clothed woman's objection. Hearing the beautiful woman's words, Song Qing-shu finally came to his senses. He looked at the green-clothed woman and involuntarily said, "So it was you." Thinking of the time when he sneaked up to Blackwood Cliff and hid in the bathtub with her, his heart couldn't help but sway. Noticing that Song Qing-shu's gaze was intentionally or unintentionally glancing at her legs, Ren Yingying felt a burning sensation rising from the places where his gaze had swept past. Thinking back to the time when he had held and caressed her legs wantonly in his hands, Ren Yingying felt both embarrassed and angry. Coincidentally, she heard her companion's suggestion and thought that it was indeed too easy to kill him just like that. However, she knew that Song Qing-shu's martial arts were extraordinary, so she said worriedly, "But his martial arts are very high." She didn't finish her words because of her companion's face, but her meaning was clear. However, the beautiful woman raised her chin with a proud expression. "Don't worry. Have you forgotten your big sister's nickname?" Not too long ago, Ren Yingying had seen the other party in action. That mysterious spear art was not any weaker than Brother Chong's 9 strategies beyond the swords. Ren Yingying immediately smiled and said, "Sister, with your pear blossom spear, you are invincible. I am indeed overthinking." Hearing Ren Yingying's words, the captain of Mrs. Tang's guards laughed out loud. How dare a delicate woman like you claim to be invincible? In this father's opinion, no matter what kind of pear blossom spear or osmanthus blossom spear, they are no match for the long spear under my crotch in bed. Originally, with his status, he wouldn't have dared to be so vulgar in front of Madame Tang. But looking at the densely packed, black-clothed people around him, he knew that it would be difficult for him to escape death today. In his despair, he didn't care so much. Since he was the leader of Madame Tang's guard, he was not weak. Seeing her attack from so far away, he couldn't help but despise her. However, in the blink of an eye, the woman's spear was already a few feet away from him. Madame Tang's guard captain, the knight, was definitely not weak. Seeing her attack from so far away, he couldn't help but despise her. However, in the blink of an eye, the woman's spear was already a few feet away from him. Shocked, he slashed at the spearhead with his saber. Although the knight's saber was not a peerless saber, it was more than enough to cut a hair. The beautiful woman's spear was made of wood. If he slashed at the spearhead would definitely be broken and the crisis would be resolved. The beautiful woman sneered, and the spearhead suddenly became like a snake, twisting in the air. The knight's saber slashed at the empty air. Before he could change his move, he felt a sharp pain in his throat. He quickly dropped his weapon and covered his throat with both hands. He looked at the beautiful woman who had already returned to her original position in horror. The beautiful woman was angry at his vulgar words, so she deliberately pierced his trachea and avoided the main artery, so that he could only die slowly in pain. Song Qing-shu was just hesitating whether to save him or not. He didn't expect that everything would be settled in an instant. He stared blankly at the spear behind the beautiful woman and blurted out, "You are the 4th lady of Shandong, Yang Niaojin?" The beautiful woman's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. People in Jianghu often called her the Fourth Lady. Over time, no one knew her real name except for the few closest people. She couldn't help but look at Song Qingshu strangely. "Who are you? How do you know my name?" Seeing that Yang Yaojin didn't refute, Xiaomin also looked at Song Qingshu strangely. With the Mongolian intelligence, he only knew that she was called the Fourth Lady. She couldn't help but say with a faint smile, "Is there any girl in the world that you don't know her name?" Song Qingshu couldn't explain that he saw her real name in the history books in the future. At that time, when he saw her life story, he subconsciously admired her, so he had a very deep impression. He hesitated for a moment and wanted to give a fake name, but with Ren Yingying present, he had no choice but to say, "I am Song Qingshu, greeting the Fourth Lady." Thinking of the fact that she could leave the evaluation of Pear Blossom Spear, invincible in the world, in the official history books, Song Qingshu thought that this woman might not be inferior to the Five Masters. Moreover, with that amazing spear of hers just now, if he was careless, he might also suffer a disaster. He quickly raised his guard to 120%. Hearing Song Qingshu introduce himself, Yang Yaojin was even more surprised. "Are you the former #1 master of the Manchurian Qing, the Song Qingshu who later abandoned his glory and wealth to assassinate Kangxi?" Although Song Qingshu was notorious in the past, it was said that he failed to assassinate Kangxi and was instead burned to ashes. Such a miserable ending made the heroes of the world sigh endlessly. In addition, Sang Feihong was grateful for Song Qingshu's kindness in the past. Although she couldn't avenge him, she could use the power of the Five Lakes sect to the best of her ability. She made the sisters in the sect write his story into an opera and sing it on the streets. Of course, there were many kinds of beautification in the opera. Song Qingshu was described as a hero who endured humiliation and did not hesitate to sacrifice his own honor in order to gain Kangxi's trust. In the end, he failed to kill Kangxi with a single blow. 1 to 10, 10 to 100. This made Song Qingshu's image shine brighter and more majestic. "Fourth Lady, ask Miss Ren next to you. You'll know once you ask." Of course, Song Qingshu didn't know all this. Seeing Yang Yaojin's strange expression, he only thought that she was curious about why he didn't die. Seeing Ren Yingying nod hesitantly, Yang Yaojin hurriedly put away her spear and said enthusiastically, "So it's Hero Song. I'm sorry for not recognizing you. It's just that Kangxi announced to the world that young master has." At this moment, Zhao Min was also staring at Song Qingshu without blinking. In her opinion, there were many suspicious points about the assassination, but she didn't have the time to ask him. Song Qingshu laughed bitterly and said, "It's a long story." He looked like he didn't want to talk about it in detail. It must have been the Tatar emperor who was angry and cursed young master. Yang Yaojin nodded in understanding. Very quickly, she frowned and pointed at Madame Tang and the others. "Oh yes, why is Prince Song with these golden men?" Madame Tang was afraid when she was pointed at. She nervously tugged at Song Qingshu's clothes. Song Qingshu pulled Zhao Min aside and explained, "This companion of mine is seriously injured. I took her to Kaifeng City to find a famous doctor, Ping Yiji, to treat her injury." Who would have thought that Kaifeng City's gate was closed? Madame Tang happened to pass by and heard of our difficulties, so she offered to take us into the city. It was obviously this vixen who wanted to hook up with a man. Zhao Min cursed in her heart. Hearing Song Qingshu say this, she was so angry that she fiercely grabbed him. However, the situation was tense, and she didn't dare to undermine him at this time. Yang Yaojin's eyesight was very powerful. Although Zhao Min's movements were deliberately concealed, it didn't escape her eyes. Unlike Madame Tang, with her rich experience in Jianghu, she could tell at a glance that Zhao Min was a woman disguised as a man. Although she was seriously injured and pale, her features were picturesque. She also had a graceful and luxurious air about her. In terms of beauty, it was truly rare. With such a great beauty by her lover's side, Yang Yaojin really thought that it was no wonder that Miss Run was so angry. I see. Then please, Prince Song and your companion go to the side and have a rest. Yang Miaojin turned to her subordinates and asked, although we are in Jianghu, we also recognize heroes and value heroes. Do you think we should embarrass Prince Song? Soon, the men in black responded, no. I like listening to Prince Song's stories the most. Prince Song, give me an autograph. My wife admires you the most. Song Qingshu was frightened by their enthusiasm, wondering when he had become so famous. Hearing their shouts, Ren Yingying was anxious and hesitated whether to order her subordinates to spray the poisonous water. However, she also knew that if she did so, she would definitely fall out with the fourth lady. Thinking of her father's great undertaking, Ren Yingying stamped her feet and finally put down her hands. Noticing Ren Yingying's expression, Yang Miaojin felt strange. I saved your lover. Why don't you look happy at all? Yang Miaojin couldn't be blamed for being ignorant. The world was so big. Except for people related to the Sun Moon sect and the Five Mountain Sword sect, it was normal that no one knew about the love between Ren Yingying and Ling Huchong of Mount Hua. Thank you very much, Fourth Lady. It's just that this Madame Tang helped me earlier, and I really can't abandon her when she's in danger. Madame Tang gratefully looked at his back, but Zhao Min's expression changed. Just as she was about to speak, Song Qingshu grabbed her belt and gently pushed it towards Yang Miaojin. If I, Song, have the misfortune of dying, I hope Fourth Nyangzi will send my companion to Kaifeng to seek treatment from Ping Yiji. Song Qingshu was worried about the poisonous water of the Sun Moon sect. He wasn't sure that he could protect Zhao Min, so he simply handed her over to Yang Miaojin. Zhao Min was pushed by a gentle force and lightly landed at Yang Miaojin's side. Just as she stood still, she couldn't help but curse. Song Qingshu, so many women who love you deeply are waiting for you. Be it in appearance or anything else, none of them are inferior to this vixen. Is it worth risking your life for her? Chapter 321. As soon as she said this, she found that Yang Miaojin and the others were staring at her strangely. Zhao Min then realized that her words were ambiguous, as if she was one of those women who loved him deeply. She couldn't help but blush, but she was too embarrassed to defend herself at this time. I thought you wanted me to die. Song Qingshu looked at her in surprise and smiled faintly. Of course I want you to die, but I want you to die in my hands instead of ending your life with such a ridiculous reason. Zhao Min was smart and knew that Song Qingshu had always been confident, but this time he sent her away in advance. He must not have the confidence to deal with these people. After getting along with Song Qingshu for a period of time, her impression of him had changed a lot. Although they didn't develop feelings for each other, she didn't want to see him fall into a dangerous situation for a Jin Kingdom woman that he had never met. At this time, Madame Tang also spoke. She slightly bowed to Song Qingshu and softly said, "This mistress is very grateful that young Master Song has such thoughts. But they outnumber you. Even if you stay, you will only die in vain. You should take your brother to get treatment as soon as possible." Zhao Min, who was standing to the side, curled her lips disdainfully, a vixen who advances by retreating. The reason why I want to save Mrs. Tang is not because of your beauty, but because of the Tao in my heart. Song Qingshu smiled faintly. How could he not see through Mrs. Tang's thoughts? However, although he was not a good person, he had his own persistence. No matter what her motive was, he owed Mrs. Tang a favor. If he just stood by and watched, it would really go against his conscience. And when martial arts reached a certain level, it was often more important to cultivate one's mind than martial arts. Receiving a drop of water from others, one must repay it with a spring. Prince Song really has the style of the Qin dynasty. Yang Miaojin praised in her heart and showed a trace of admiration on her face. Then she straightened her face and said, "If it was someone else, I would let them go for your sake. But I was entrusted by someone to kill this woman. I hope you can forgive me. Fourth Lady, you don't have to take it to heart. Please." Song Qingshu stretched out his hand. Yang Miaojin frowned. If they really fought, no matter how high Song Qingshu's martial arts were, it would be difficult for him to escape death. She admired the man in front of her and didn't want him to die in the chaos, so she didn't feel awkward. Zhao Min was equally anxious. Although Song Qing-shu had taken advantage of her from time to time, she knew that Song Qing-shu would never really hurt her. On the other hand, the people around her were the evil sect's holy nun and the Revolutionary Army's leader. No matter how she looked at them, they did not seem to be easy to get along with. Moreover, her identity was sensitive and her future would be uncertain if she fell into their hands. Noticing Yang Miaozhen's hesitation, Zhao Min quickly guessed what she was thinking and quickly came up with an idea. I have a way that satisfies both sides. Why don't you listen to it? Oh. Song Qing-shu looked at her curiously, thinking that he had to be careful about her idea. Otherwise, he would be sold by her and still be counting the money for her. If Song Qing-shu's current thoughts were known by Zhao Min, she would probably be so angry that she would immediately leave him alone. I don't care whether you die or not. Yang Miaozhen also looked at her in surprise and said with a smile, let's hear it. The injuries on her body were faintly painful. Zhao Min slightly frowned and said softly, everyone must have heard that this Song. Brother Song's martial arts are excellent, and his name is well known throughout the world. When we fight with our lives, Song, Brother Song will naturally die. But I'm afraid that the Fourth Lady's subordinates will also suffer heavy casualties, and the Fourth Lady may also be seriously injured. The Fourth Lady and Brother Song are both generous and righteous people. It's really a pity that one will die and the other will be injured for a mere golden man. Although Zhao Min's voice was weak, there was a faint sense of persuasion in her tone. Seeing that everyone was staring at her, she pursed her lips and smiled, continuing, since the Fourth Lady is known as the Pear Blossom Spear, in my opinion, why don't the two of you have a fair competition? If Brother Song wins, the Fourth Lady will let us go. If Brother Song loses, Madame Tang will be handed over to you to deal with. You can kill or torture her as you wish. What do you think? Zhao Min's plan was very clear. She had seen Song Qing-shu fight with her own eyes. He was able to kidnap her under the watchful eyes of so many top masters in the inn. She didn't believe that the Fourth Lady's martial arts were better than the Shaolin Temple's #1 in the last 200 years, Xian Sheng, or the Mongolian nation's master Jinlun Fuwang. Yang Miaozhen's eyes lit up. She asked her subordinates with a smile, what do you think? The Jianghu people had always respected the Fourth Lady's martial arts, as if she was a goddess. In addition, the reputation of Song Qing-shu was only limited to the Qing kingdom. No one thought that Yang Miaozhen would lose. They all applauded and cheered. Yang Miaozhen looked at Zhao Min with a faint smile and said softly, you have a thorough plan for your lover. No matter whether he wins or loses, he won't lose anything. Zhao Min blushed and was about to explain, but Yang Miaozhen had already turned around and shouted to Song Qing-shu, Prince Song, I have no problem with it. Do you agree? Song Qing-shu looked at Zhao Min in surprise. He also didn't expect that Zhao Min would try her best to help him. He nodded and said, of course, Song Mao can't wait to see the Fourth Lady's invincible Pear Blossom Spear. What if it's a tie? Ren Yingying suddenly said. Seeing that Zhao Min was about to say something, Song Qing-shu raised his hand to stop her. The Fourth Lady has the upper hand. She is willing to risk herself to give Song Mao a chance to fight alone. She is already at a great disadvantage. If it's a tie, Song Mao will lose. Prince Song is really a modest gentleman. Yang Miaozhen nodded approvingly. Please. Hearing Yang Miaozhen praise Song Qing-shu, Ren Yingying was so angry that her lungs almost exploded. She thought of the way Song Qing-shu wantonly molested her in the bathtub on the Blackwood Cliff. How could he be a modest gentleman? But how could she explain the reason to others? She could only stand there alone and sulk. After seeing Yang Miaozhen's amazing spear, Song Qing-shu naturally didn't dare to be careless. He held the wooden sword in his hand and stood there with a solemn expression. Seeing the weapon in Song Qing-shu's hand, the crowd of black-clothed people couldn't help but burst into laughter. A sword made of wood? Song Yingxiong should change to a sword. Our Fourth Lady's spear art is very sharp. I'm afraid this thin piece of wood will break with one touch. It seems that the Fourth Lady will win this time. Zhao Min naturally knew that there was no difference between an iron sword and a wooden sword for Song Qing-shu. Hearing the noise in the crowd of black-clothed people, she rolled her eyes and came up with a plan. She said to Ren Yingying, "Brother Song's weapon is at a disadvantage. In order to prevent Miss Ren's companion from winning, I hope Miss Ren can lend the sword on your waist to Brother Song. After using it, I will return it with both hands." It turned out that although Zhao Min was confident in Song Qingshu's martial arts, she thought that Yang Miaojin must be an expert among experts since she was known as the Pear Blossom Spear, invincible in the world. She seemed to be asking Ren Yingying, but in fact, she deliberately said it for Yang Miaojin to hear. If Yang Miaojin was really misled by her and underestimated Song Qingshu's wooden sword, she would inevitably suffer a great loss in the battle. Ren Yingying heard this and said angrily, "Why should I lend it to him?" She held a short sword in her hand, and the scabbard was inlaid with a few precious gems. This sword was called Lightning Shift, and it was a famous treasure of the Sun Moon sect. Although it was shorter than an ordinary long sword, it could cut through metal and iron effortlessly. If he accidentally dies under the Fourth Lady's spear, who will you take revenge on? Zhao Min said with a faint smile. Sister Yang can stab him to death with your spear. Ren Yingying said hatefully, but she hesitated in her heart. If Song Qingshu died like this, it would be too easy on him. However, if she lent her beloved sword to him for the battle, what would the others think? Ren Yingying's expression could be vaguely seen through the light gauze, and it was obvious that she was in a dilemma. Zhao Min smiled slyly and ignored her. She turned her attention to the battle in the field. Yang Miaojin was quite knowledgeable, and she didn't look down on the wooden sword in Song Qingshu's hand like the others did. She saw that Song Qingshu was holding the wooden sword and standing in the same place, but he gave off a feeling of a mountain and deep abyss. She hurriedly pulled herself together. He is a guest from afar. Prince Song, please go first. Seeing that Song Qingshu didn't have any flaws, Yang Miaojin didn't want to make the first move. Ladies first, Fourth Lady, please go first. Song Qingshu said with a faint smile. If that's the case, I will accept your invitation. Prince Song, please be careful. Yang Miaojin didn't decline anymore. Her Pear Blossom Spear art wasn't only good at attacking flaws, but it was also good at creating flaws through a torrential rain of pear blossom attacks. As soon as she said the word yes, at this time, two women cried out at the same time. The cry belonged to Zhao Min. Yang Miaojin had just used this move to take the life of Madame Tang's guard leader in the blink of an eye. The other cry belonged to Ren Yingying. She glared at Zhao Min and said, "Why did you pinch me?" It turned out that Zhao Min was nervous and subconsciously grabbed to the side. Ren Yingying was also focused on the battle in the field, so she was caught off guard by the seriously injured Zhao Min. Zhao Min's long nails pierced into her, and she couldn't help but cry out in pain. Very few people in the field paid attention to this little episode. They all stared at how Song Qingshu would deal with it. Song Qingshu was famous, so Yang Miaojin naturally wouldn't be as casual as when she dealt with the Golden Knight. Although it was the same move, there were hundreds of variations. Everyone saw the body of Yang Miaojin's Pear Blossom Spear suddenly tremble, and the spearhead instantly bloomed with a dazzling silver light. There was only one spearhead, but in that instant, it transformed into hundreds of spearheads. It was like pear blossom blooming all over the sky, covering Song Qingshu's whole body. Song Qingshu faced this dazzling spear and felt it more clearly. He clearly saw that there were a total of 108 spearheads, each aimed at 108 vital acupoints on his body. He knew that Yang Miaojin had used her internal energy to bend the body of the spear and make the spearhead flicker, creating the illusion of 108 spear stabs in an instant. The key question now was which of these 108 spear stabs was the real one. After thinking so much, it was just a matter of a moment. Song Qingshu was about to attack, but his expression suddenly changed. This was because the force coming from the spearhead told him that every spear was real. Zhao Min's face was drained of blood. She could see that Song Qingshu had been blocked by Yang Miaojin's spear because of his misjudgment. He could only take it head-on. If he couldn't block one of these 108 spear stabs, he would be seriously injured or even killed on the spot. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.